Hello and welcome to Too Many Movies, the podcast where we discuss DVDs, Blu-rays, and even the occasional VHS tape. I'm your host, Hal, and with me here today... Oh, Swine, you're here. Oh, man, I just got done doing an episode that was 9.5 hours long. I was hoping to have the next episode be somebody who wouldn't have a very long episode, and, well, here we go. Uncultured Swine, man.
19 is the final frontier. 19 hours, that's what we're going for.
19 hours, great.
I could talk about these movies for that long.
Yeah, probably.
We're good.
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm glad. No, I'm kidding. Welcome back, Swine. Glad to have you back on. Because today's episode's I'm actually very excited for today's episode because a little backstory. Before episode 100, I was doing some I was going through the episodes that I've done before episode 100, so the first 99, and I realized there were two kinds of movies not yet talked about on the podcast that I thought was interesting that they haven't been talked about yet, and that was a film from the 1930s. So up until then, and up until now, we have never talked about a movie from the decade, the 1930s, as of yet, and a Pixar film. We had yet to talk about a Pixar film. So it's funny because...
It's crazy.
I know, it's crazy because I feel like those are... I know those are two completely random aspects to film, but I feel as though up until, 99 episodes and not once have we talked about a Pixar film or a film from the 30s. So I thought that was weird. So I initially was planning, hey, how about episode 101 be that episode where we talk about a Pixar film and a film from the 1930s. But then I thought, you know what? William sent me the 9 Lives of Fritz the Cat, so he was very eager to get the Fritz the Cat and Showgirls 2 episode out. So we ended up going with that one instead.
What a banger.
I know, yeah. What a banger episode. But anyway, now you're here, and we're here to finally talk about our first Pixar film on the podcast. We're not talking about a 1930s film. That'll come later. Eventually, I don't know when, but someday soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, so Pixar does it has such an important role in the childhood of you, me, the guys who are everyone who's been on this podcast.
Yeah, many of us. Yeah,
our demographic, early 2000s Pixar played such a huge role, and you can see that in our YTPs we made, how much of a source did this make for that stuff?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Exactly. Pixar is one of those studios. I'm obviously very critical of them nowadays, but
yeah,
I can't deny the impact their earlier films had on me, and not just through forming my tastes through animation, but cinema as a whole, I would say. Some of the earlier Pixar films I hold in such high regard as some of my favorite films of all time. Not just favorite animated films, favorite films in general. So that's huge.
Yeah, I think the fact that they have struggled as much recently, because you do cover recent release movies on here too, and no one, I'm assuming no one's really stepped out. I want to talk about Elemental or whatever else is coming out. Yeah, they don't have the same influence they used to have.
No,
it's a shame.
Yeah, and I don't want to be all old Pixar better, new Pixar objectively bad. Look, sometimes they make something that's not the worst thing ever. They still have some kind of spark to them, but I will say that perfect streak is no longer, and I doubt we'll ever see a streak that good ever again. Not saying they will never make a good movie ever again. I'm just saying the streak they had in that late 90s, early 2000s is unmatched in my opinion.
Yeah. It's stupid good.
Yeah. Stupid good. I agree. So why don't we get into that first Pixar film then? Monsters Inc. Let's talk about Monsters Inc. because I have it on DVD, so we can talk about it on this podcast.
Believe it or not, I have it on Steelbook again.
Really?
Yeah. I believe it's a Canadian import this time.
One of them Canadian Steelbooks, eh?
Yeah. Hey, yeah. It's got it's 3D. It's got this little like magnetic what I can't remember, like the things where you can like kind of tilt it and the picture changes as you tilt it, like one of those illusion type things.
Oh,
It's called Scratchy.
the
Like you can
holographic
like
covers.
you can get out in the light.
I have holographic covers on a couple of my 4Ks, like Morbius, and oh, there was another one I had like a
Classic.
Yeah. Everybody loves Morbius. Oh, what was the other? I'm looking right at my collection. What was the other scratchy holographic cover I had? Oh, this is so frustrating. I don't mean to derail the podcast to figure this out, but now I really want to figure this out. Fuck. What was the other? It was Morbius, and then it was Shazam. That was what it was. Shazam and Morbius are the movies I have the holographic covers of. Sorry. I'm sorry I derailed the podcast.
Some of the finest superhero films ever come on physical release.
Yeah. A really wholesome film that was a genuine surprise to many, and also Shazam. But anyway,
exactly.
Monsters Inc. I'm kind of glad this is our first Pixar film on the podcast, because I feel as though Monsters Inc., despite the fact that I love it so much, I feel as though I can't say it's my favorite. You know, it's not my favorite Pixar film. It's not my favorite animated film. I feel as though it does get, I don't want to say it's been shafted in terms of the spotlight, because it absolutely has not. It's one of the most beloved films of our generation specifically, I would say. Yeah. I feel, from what I've seen, I feel like us specifically from our generation really appreciate it more so than a lot of other generations, I would say. Previous ones. And I think that's because we grew up with it, obviously, so we have that connection to it. But even though I love it so much, I can't exactly say it's my favorite. Obviously, I have other favorites when it comes to Pixar's pantheon, but we don't have to talk about those. I just wanted to mention that even though I love it so much, I think it is a shame that it doesn't have that. It's not that like all-time great, that all-time top spot for me personally.
I'll say it is my favorite.
Well, there you go. Film. Perfect.
And it's interesting because it's not, despite like it has a great concept of, you know, like the monster thing, but yeah, it's not like any like, it's not bigger than itself. It's in reality, it's like a, I'm not even sure like what specific genre this is, but like, you know, like it's like a workplace comedy almost. Where it's a comedy film with a very, very good heart to it. And like, so it's not like something, it doesn't, like if you just watch it once or twice, it maybe doesn't have that same kind of like staying power in your mind as like Ratatouille or Incredibles. But the characters and the comedy are just so good. We'll get into like the music. It's such a good experience. Yeah. And again, I'll go like, it has such good heart too.
Yeah, I agree. I think it still does have some top-notch stuff. I'm just saying it's not the best for me.
Yeah. No, I get that. Like you have a lot of good choices with Pixar.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a difficult competition for sure, but you know, yeah.
Yeah, this was from what I'm aware, this is the first film I watched in the theaters, which I have no memory of. I was like 1.
Yeah. I probably saw
I was
it in theaters too.
I was a very complicit 1-year-old though. I was very silent.
Yeah.
Thankfully for everyone else there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't remember if I had seen this in theaters. I think I've mentioned this before. I know I've been to the movie theaters before The Incredibles, but The Incredibles is the theater experience I can remember. Like, I can't remember going to the movie theaters before The Incredibles. I have no physical memory of me actually being in a theater before The Incredibles, but I know I went to the theater before The Incredibles. So there's a chance I did see this in theaters. I have no memory of it. I remember far more watching it at home on my blue VHS tape of Monsters Inc.
Yeah. Classic.
Which I'm so ashamed to say I got rid of it years ago, so I no longer have it. That's why I have it on DVD. I upgraded because I was like, we don't really need all these VHS tapes. I'll just get rid of them all and we'll upgrade to DVD. Now, there were some VHS tapes I couldn't part way with. I was like, I can't get rid of this. I need to keep this. I really wish that blue VHS tape was one of them. I had the foresight to be like, I'll keep this, but I didn't. And I kicking myself every day for doing that because that thing was really cool. The fact that it was this bright blue tape,
Yeah. Yeah, it's like those and the orange Nickelodeon ones are the ones that stick out.
Yeah. Oh, the orange Nickelodeon ones. Yeah, those were cool too. But what's important is the content. We'll talk about the content of the movie. So, you know what? I want to start with the two main characters with this film. So, Mike and Sully, played by Billy Crystal and John Goodman, respectively. Holy crap. These are two of the best characters Pixar has ever made, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they just play off each other so well. And, I'm curious, how would you characterize, I want to stick with Sully first. How would you characterize him?
He does seem kind of typical main character where he's not necessarily the funniest character in the movie. That obviously goes to Mike Wazowski. He has the heart of the movie in mind. Yeah. He is definitely the heart of the movie because he has that relationship with Boo.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like I kind of feel like he's a bit of like, because he's not very like socially strong. Like he's kind of like you look at like his interactions with Mr. Waternoose, when Mike and Celia are together. And yeah, he's just kind of. I feel like he has like almost like a bit of a meathead personality, and that's not a bad thing at all.
No,
yeah, I just think it's kind of he's out of his almost like his comfort zone. Like he's not like if you compare it to, you get into like how they're characterized, how the world is kind of characterized in Monsters University. It's almost like it's like big celebrity, but he's a very grounded character. Like he is on TV, but yeah, he's very down to earth. He's a very like people's guy.
Yeah, very much so.
And yeah, he's just kind of like a very like I'd say he's like very reserved, but yeah, as the movie goes on, you just see like his heart kind of explode and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly.
For Boo, and yeah, he's a great character. And then Mike is so iconic.
Mike is the fact funniest
that you can just say his name. You just say his name. It's funny.
Mike Wazowski. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, kid.
He
and of course it. And of course his screams.
They're so iconic. Billy Crystal brings this character to life. He is the reason Mike Wazowski is as iconic as he is. What's interesting though to me is that I feel as though as I was watching the movie this time around, I realized, man, this character could have easily come across as really annoying and not translate as well. Because it is Billy Crystal riffing a lot. It feels as though he's ad-libbing at times, but it's never ad-libbing in a way that it's annoying, where you feel as though the actor is trying really, really hard to, I don't know, top like Robin Williams as the genie, as being like the side comedic character, or one of those kinds of characters that is just trying way too hard to be funny. But again, I think what's smart about this movie is they don't make him that animated. They make him feel more naturally funny. They're playing to Billy Crystal's strengths as a comedian, where he is just saying things that just do come naturally to this kind of character.
Yeah, he's kind of delusional and like a. Like he's not over the top delusional, but he's just like enough delusional that it just plays off really. Like you have the gag of where he keeps getting covered up whenever he's on something big.
Yeah.
Or you get the magazine, you something covers him up. But yeah, and I think that's like he's not a powder, he's not a whiner. I think that's really important. He's a very optimistic guy. I think that what plays like he's not like. Things are just going well for him, and then when he reacts reasonably, but he is a little over optimistic, and he's not. Yeah, he's not a whiner. And I think that plays well when he is like super frustrated, because like he has good character dynamics. Like he reacts reasonably, but he's just slightly unreasonable.
You know, it's interesting.
Like naturally.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I feel as though what makes these characters, these two main characters, shine brighter than usual is the fact that they have conventions to them, but they're unconventionally told. So you have Mike, who is, I would say he's a bit of an egotist, where he does have a bit of an ego to him, but not so much that he's an awful person. He seems like a nice enough guy. And going back to that whole running gag of his face being covered on the magazine, on television, like any other movie would characterize him as being annoyed by that. But every time he sees it, he's just happy that he's getting any sort of attention, whether it be on a magazine or on a television screen. Like that's enough for him, which is also very comedic as well, because you see his face being covered up. It's great. And then you have Sully, who is like this big, ferocious looking monster, but he's not entirely the stereotype of, oh, this big ferocious monster, but with a heart of gold, where he's just scared of everything. Like he does seem like a reasonable enough adult, but he's not, he doesn't play into either stereotype, you know. He plays into being his very own kind of character, and I feel as though that's why this movie has lasted as long as it does. It doesn't fall for stereotypes. It makes these characters feel a lot more believable because of the writing, because of the voice performances, and it's just nice to see, because you don't often see these kinds of characters done well in anything else, I would say, or in the fact that they're kind of getting over these kinds of stereotypes. They're trying to make them feel a lot more real, a lot more grounded, despite the fact that they're animated monsters in a kids film from 2001.
Yeah, I think it also the movie is about Monsters Inc. And I think it works very well. They're both very invested in their work. I think that another way to characterize Sully is that he is like he's very workmanlike. Like he is like, his life does center. He's a hard worker. He's really invested in his work at the company. And I kind of like too, like there is like the workplace humor where he's like, the couple of lines that I like that are fairly subtle is when he's like, when he's telling Boo, I'm not going to scare you, I'm off duty.
Yeah, I'm off duty.
Like it's like subtle stuff like that. And then like when he tells Randall at the end of the film, like, she's not scared of you anymore, looks like you're out of the job. Like it's like little stuff where he's very invested in his work, but it's not like to a toxic degree, but it's just something like he cares about. Yeah, that's like, they have very admirable qualities like that. And obviously like Mike is very, like their relationship, you open up at the film and they're doing the training segment, and it makes it very clear they're really invested in this. Is like they got a cool job and they're really invested in it, and they're committed to it. Obviously, like Mike doesn't really care for his paperwork filing, but everything else, like this company is a very important part of their lives. They're kind of grown with it.
And like you said, it's not to a toxic degree where it's annoying. Like it feels like they genuinely care about the work they put in, and that you're right, that is an admirable quality.
And then you also see with that, as the movie progresses, you kind of see how that when Sully starts to grow closer with Boo, like how that kind of those two concepts kind of conflict with him in his life, because they are incompatible, and they become increasingly incompatible. And even though we see that his job is so important to him, that Boo becomes more important to him. How those juxtapose over the course of the film, again, like plays very naturally. It's just very well composed as a film. Like all the concepts play well with each other. Yeah,
and I like that you're not being talked down to by having these themes in there of discovering new aspects of life that are not just work related. You can interpret those kinds of aspects, but the movie doesn't bash you over the head with it. There is a scene during the climax when they've been banished, and that's when they have the big blow up scene where Mike is confronting Sully, and Sully goes, "None of that matters now," and Mike is just like, well, wait a minute, none of it matters? What do you mean none of it matters? And what's great about that scene is that they are both right, in that Sully's right. They need to go back to save Boo. But Mike is right in saying, okay, you can't just throw everything away for this one little girl. Like, I'm still here too. I'm still your best friend. And that's why that's something that's very interesting. Like, they both have different perspectives on the matter, but they both want to find that balance between the two.
Yeah. And huge props to Billy Crystal for how he delivers those lines.
Oh my God. Yeah. See, that's another
like,
thing. He, even though he has such amazing, impeccable comedic timing, and even though like a lot of his lines are just straight up jokes and gags and one-liners, the emotion is still translated through when he's giving that speech. Like, he feels genuine, and it doesn't come across as, oh, now this is the serious part of the movie. No, this sounds like Billy Crystal putting on this performance that sounds natural as to what Mike Wazowski would be saying in that moment. Like, he's no longer joking. He still has the same mannerisms that Mike would have when he would be joking, but not in a way that's combative of the tone at the moment, you know?
Yeah.
It's an amazing balancing act. Yeah, he's able to be really funny, but also really sincere at the same time.
It all plays so well together that, like, yeah, like how he feels about his relationship with Celia, how important, like, yeah, he does. And it's interesting because, yeah, you'd say that Sully is a little more committed to the work than Mike is. So yeah, it's kind of interesting when Mike's being the one who's trying to, like, be the one who appeals to, like, is like, I'm worried about losing our jobs, or like, yeah, they've already lost their jobs at that point.
Yeah, because they're banished.
Yeah, but like, yeah, but yeah, again, all of it feels so, like, so reasonable. Everything, like, feels so, like, yeah, their characters are so well defined, and everything feels right when they do it. And yeah, you know that. Yeah. But yeah, you already see, like, you're able to see, like, the strain that this is put on, like, to put it lightly, the strain this is put on, like, Mike and Celia. And yeah, like, everything, it's really fast paced, and it's able to, like, cover all the bases really well. Like, yeah, you can see, like, they're just running around because they're having to chase Boo everywhere, but you get, like, little moments where, like, Celia is, like, freaking out at Mike, and he's not able to tell her what's going on. Yeah. And yeah, it's just, everything's really fast paced, but they're able to get their bases in, and it feels natural because, yeah, they're chasing the kid around.
Yeah, and it's not even that he's
all over the place.
It's not even that he's lying to her for the sake of the plot and to cause more conflict. He's lying to her because, well, they have this preconceived notion that children are toxic, and he just doesn't want to necessarily expose himself as to being the reason why there's a toxic child running around. So
right,
yeah,
and then you see him explain it to her, and yeah, this does sound ridiculous that, yeah, we got a kid, and Randall and Mr. Waternoose are trying to kill us, and they banished us, and he's like, you expect me to believe that? And then, you know, you see, like, and then the kid pops up, and then Randall comes chasing after him, and at that point, it's okay.
Oh yeah, in any other movie, that would be the cause of another subplot where she's just like, I don't believe you, but no, it's immediately rectified when Boo pops her head out from behind Sully, and it's just like, Mike Wazowski, and she's like, oh shit. So yeah, exactly. Like, the movie knows what to introduce and what to have at a moment's notice, rather than making it an entire subplot.
Anything else on that? I had a couple other things, or I'm sure we'll have a lot of things to talk about. I want to kind of go back to the beginning of the film.
Yeah, go. You go ahead. I wrote a couple of notes down, but they're not necessarily related to the actual plot of the film. So whatever you have, I'll go off whatever you have.
Yeah, so just going off the opening, I think is, like, they do. So I don't, like, it's like within, like, 3 minutes of film, like, they're able to, like, basically, like, explain the entire world in this, like, very natural. Like, yeah, you don't see Mike and Sully at the beginning, but yeah, you have the simulator, and yeah, like, that's a fun reveal too, that it was a simulator the whole time. Like, you don't realize that. It kind of reveals, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, yeah, I guess the subversion of your expectations of
because
what scaring looks like, because like, you got the monster there who kind of freaks out.
Yeah, you think it's a real.
He yells at
monster.
The kid, and then the kid yells back, and he freaks out, and he trips on all this stuff, and all that stuff does, like, you got, like, yeah, like, the toxic stuff and everything, and then you got the you don't leave the door open because it could let a kid back into the human world. A single touch could kill you. Like, it so much is done in that first 3 minutes, and yeah, we don't and that's without Mike and Sully.
And it doesn't feel like the movie is explaining it to the audience, because they set it up that it is a simulated process where you have people being trained to become scarers. So, of course, Mr. Waternoose is going to explain all the different aspects into how the world works to the people who are essentially being introduced to how the world works.
Yeah, and it's also, they're not telling us that because, yeah, they are revealed, like, they're slowly revealed, like, obviously you don't realize it's a simulation, so it still has that, like, it's not just, they're not telling us directly, it still has that cinematic aspect, because, yeah, we're, like, they're revealing stuff that we do not know, and, like, it's all happens so quickly, too.
Yeah.
Like, it's not labored, and then we after that, we cut to the commercial, and that, the commercial plays a role in the rest of the film. It's not just it is there for exposition, but it starts a gag that keeps going for the rest of the film.
Yeah, it starts a gag. Yeah. It's also a very interesting aspect to deliver exposition while having the main characters present, because they're like, oh, it's the commercial. Yeah. We filmed the commercial. Let's watch it because we get to see ourselves on TV. That's exciting.
Yeah.
But also still explaining to the audience how the world works by being like, screams, they power your car. We light your city, stuff like that.
And then it also creates the interesting, like, it kind of gets your mind going, because you have this, like, really optimistic commercial, and then you cut away from it and they start talking about, like, there's a scream shortage. So in reality, things that, like, you get this, like, really rosy picture at first, and then you realize, oh, things aren't as good as they look. And then the longer the film goes, like that, again, these are core concepts of where the film's going, like the company and the company's struggling, so we got to do something about it.
The seeds are being planted. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, side note about the commercial. I love the when it shows the shot of the kid looking at the television, and he's just looks so bored. It says simulation, not actual child.
Yes. Yeah, that's good.
That's so good. But it is also, it's a funny visual, but it also does get across the idea that, kids are not as scared of monsters as they used to be, so we're developing more technology. So again, it's a funny concept. Kids these days, they're not as scared as they used to be, but that also means, okay, that is a problem that the characters have to overcome, and being like, we have to develop new scare tactics to scare them, which again is very subtle, because they're trying to find new ways of scaring children, that ultimately one of the things that is revealed at the end is that they don't necessarily need to scare the children. They can just make the children laugh, because laugh is 10 times more powerful than scream.
Yeah. Thank God, because they're not very funny. You can get that later. Anything else with that? Just how they kind of set things up.
Yeah, I think I think then they just kind of walk to the factory, which again, you have the gag of them trying to get into the car, but Sully's like, there's a scream shortage, we're walking.
Right.
It's a funny gag of him being obsessed with his car, but also it does establish, hey, there's a scream shortage, we're going to walk to work so we can save energy. And then you see the shot of the newspaper stand, and it says, like, rolling blackouts expected. Again, little bits, like it is kind of, like, a lot
steadily progressing.
But there's these different aspects of filmmaking that are giving exposition. You have again, like we said, you have the scene at the beginning of Waternoose explaining everything. You have Sully just giving a one-off comment of being like, hey, there's a blackout, there's a scream shortage, we're gonna walk to work. You have the shot of the newspaper, and then the pans to them walking. Like, there's a lot going on, but it's delivered in different ways that it doesn't feel as though you're getting an information overload,
Yeah, and I think also too, like, we can get into the world building at some point, because I think, and it's interesting because I think it struggled, like, it's the world building's, like, the concept, it's a contained concept and it works, but I think once you start to expand it a bit, like Monsters University does, it starts to fall apart a bit. But yeah, when you look at this, that walking the work scene, like, it is, they're able to give you like little tastes of it, and I think that's where this makes the most sense, is just to be, like, kind of contained. But yeah, again, it's all very quick, and they just have, like, these little you have these little gags, like, it's not anything crazy. Yeah, you got the guy who falls through the vents. You got, the guy
Oh,
who like
great.
he's on his newspaper.
Oh,
You
nuts.
see he burns it.
I love
Right.
the fucking like dinosaur foot they're next to, and they're just like, "Hey
Yeah.
Ted, good morning." See, Mikey, Ted's walking to work.
Big deal. He takes 3 steps and he's there.
What I love
that's
about
good.
that
This
scene,
is little stuff, and yeah, just keep going.
what I love about that scene though specifically is that it is kind of weird to think, oh, so there's different sized monsters, but you're not at all questioning the logic of this film, as opposed to say
Mhm.
something like Cars. I feel as though the world building of
Yeah.
Cars is so, like, Cars as a concept is so heady, you can't help but think about the logic of that film. Whereas
Mhm.
here, even if there are kind of holes to the logic, you're not at all questioning it because the movie doesn't feel the need to explain, to over explain, you know? It's kind of
Yeah.
introducing these things one by one. And, you know, a world full of monsters, that's fine. You're just like, yeah, that makes sense. That's we don't need to stretch our imaginations that far. And again, as much as I love the first Cars movie, that is a problem, is the world building. That is where
Mhm.
most people's problems with those movies lie, is the world building. Whereas I feel as though this movie, it has a much easier time of grabbing the audience's attention and not having us kind of start to grow more critical of it after a while.
Yeah. Yeah, for the most part, yeah, you do have like normal sized monsters, like comparatively. You don't have like, like you have a small amount of giants, and you have
Yeah.
like, there's not like crazy small.
No, it's more so just for the sake of a visual gag.
Yeah.
But again, it's so quick that it doesn't leave you thinking about it too much. Now, obviously, I'm thinking about it because I've seen this movie more times than I've seen The Sun. But for first time viewers, you're still within the film's grasp of just you just think it's a funny visual. And it is a funny visual. It's so funny. Ted walking to work.
Yeah. Yep. And then we finally get into the factory, and I feel like let's go ahead and go over this just because let's like play such a strong role in like the emotion of those opening acts too. Like Randy Newman's score in this film is insane. Like it's got to be easily like one of his best works.
I agree.
Like, you got the sax, you got the sax for the walking to work. Like it just had, obviously, like If I Didn't Have You, that's the title of the song, right?
If I Didn't Have You, something like that. Yeah. The one that plays the credits.
Yeah.
And then
the opening theme. It's the opening theme when they have the opening credits.
Oh, the opening credits throughout all the doors. Yeah,
they
that's
don't have
fantastic.
the lyrics, but yes, like just a jazzy saxophone that he keeps coming back to. You got the theme as they're slowly marching in. You get the slow-mo marching of the monsters entering the scare floor.
They're so awesome.
As a Boo's film, Boo's theme is also great. I feel like one of the best themes, musical. One of my favorite musical themes is Boo's. I think it's
one of my favorite pieces of music in this film is the like the music that plays whenever they're being chased, or the scene the scene of the garbage like the eye going through the garbage stuff and coming out of Cube, because they not only, I love that song in the context of the movie, but I also gotta mention this. They use that kind of music in Toy Story 3 when they're at the dump. I don't know if you ever noticed that, but that's something I always noticed. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, it's probably. I don't think I specifically noticed that, but that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's Randy Newman, so of course he's gonna use it. It was a cute moment in Toy Story 3, but anyway, it works a lot better here because that's what it was meant for. But it is memorable because I'm imagining it right now in my head. That's that memorable. Yeah,
it does. It forms it's such a solid part of the identity of this movie, and like you look at like a lot of the memes around this are If I Didn't Have You. You got the Joe animation, amongst a bunch of other stuff. Yeah,
I forgot about the Yukino Joe animation of Monsters Inc.
He's got a couple of them. You're green with it.
You're green with it.
One more time. You're green with it. But yeah, it's really laid back, but yeah, at the same time, it just has such a strong heart.
Oh yeah.
That yeah, you can't help but love it. And yeah, like, again, the music plays along with that perfectly.
Oh yeah, the
Yeah,
music helps this movie a lot. Not that the story and the characters are already really strong, but the music makes it even stronger. I love the music of this film.
yeah. Should we talk about the villains?
Ooh, dude, there's some really good villains in this movie. I
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to avoid talking about the Nostalgia Critics Disney-cember on this film because I rewatched it recently. It's really bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's unbelievably bad. Now, I don't
Okay.
entirely blame him because it's clear he doesn't care about the movie, and that's why I mentioned
Mm.
I feel as though our generation appreciates this film more so than other generations because
Mm-hmm.
growing up I quoted the shit out of this movie. I remember a lot of it because I did grow up with it and I learned to appreciate it. Whereas I feel as though critics and people who came before us, I'm sure there were people who loved it too, but they didn't appreciate it the same way we do. And I can see that
Mm-hmm.
in the Nostalgia Critics Disney-cember, where he's just going like, yeah, this movie sucks. It's kind of not good. I mean, he didn't say it sucks,
Mm.
but he was not giving it its due diligence, I felt.
Uh-huh.
And one of those aspects is he finds the villains very forgettable. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? First of all, Randall, one of my favorite Pixar villains,
Mm-hmm.
purely just because he introduced me to the concept of Steve Buscemi as an actor.
Uh-huh.
Like I had no idea. I was a child. I didn't know who Steve Buscemi was. Like this was my introduction to who Steve Buscemi is. And obviously I've grown to realize he has a lot of great roles. He's a great actor. I love Steve Buscemi. But I still hold on to his role as Randall because it is so good.
Yeah.
Because he's both threatening. That's important as a villain. He's both really threatening, but also really funny, which is
Yeah.
hugely important for a film like this. And I remember Doug was saying like, "Oh, you either make him really funny or make him really, really evil." And it's just like they did. What movie did you
Yeah.
watch? That's exactly, you're describing what Randall is by describing what he could be.
Mhm.
You're describing what he is, where he is this super huge bastard, but also he's really funny. Like he has some lines in this movie that I quote to this day, like the iconic "shh." You hear that? It's the winds of change.
The winds of change.
Sure. And again,
Yeah.
Steve Buscemi makes this character. Obviously, the animation on him is really good too because he's this.
Yeah.
I love how he's this really quick moving lizard character who also can turn invisible. Like that is a freaky
That's a
fucking
perfect
monster.
villain.
It's a perfect
the original villain, basically.
Yeah, he is but he's
The
also
serpent.
he's also a perfect monster. Like that is a monster I would be afraid of as a kid. This super fast moving lizard who can turn invisible at any moment's notice. He could be anywhere. And we even see him beat the shit out of Sully at one point. And that's scary because I'm like, I love Sully. I want to see him to the end. And the fact that he's being choked out by this fucking gremlin is, it freaks you out. And he just has these eyes that are like always kind of squinted. And you're just, he's a very off-putting villain, but he has enough moments where he is hilarious. So then while I was scared of him as a kid, I still found him entertaining as a kid. I was never like closing my eyes in fear of this character. There was a nice balance to this villain character where I could be afraid of him, but also find him highly entertaining.
Because like a lot of his comedy he just has like a lot of his comedy does just come from like his jealousy and his like he takes himself seriously. Yeah, he's very jealous and like he has a temper. He's kind of like I guess you could like compare him to like Hades and Hercules.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, like kind of like that. It's like he doesn't steal the show in that way, but yeah, like it's and again, like he's not a like he's one of the more major characters, but yeah, he doesn't have a ton of screen time, and yeah, so like it's a little more reserved, and so yeah, it's not it doesn't have like he doesn't have like crazy characterization, but yeah, it's not as much about him, and yeah, it also turns out he's not the only villain. He's not carrying the whole thing.
That's true.
But yeah, he's The character design, like, is very intense. I like too that he's also Boo's monster. Because I think that makes it it kind of gives Mike and Sully a bit of like allows them to kind of relate on that end.
It's
see,
something
like you see her characterization, like her drawing of him.
Yeah, it's something that Boo and Mike and Sully can relate to, because Boo is terrified of him because he's her monster, and then Mike and Sully just hate him because he's just an annoying coworker. So it's funny their levels of distaste for him as a character, but they can still relate to each other in that way.
And
it also helps
they can recognize
it also helps because it gives Boo a bit of a character arc, so then by the end she's able to overcome her fear of him.
And also because Randall is scary even for Mike and Sully. I think they're able to understand where she's coming from.
They're able to understand because he has some street cred to him where he is a legitimate threat to them. Whether he's not, even if he's not like the numbers guy like Sully is, where he can rack up big scares, he is intelligent. So he's able to cheat the system. He's able to have like these schemes that will get him into a higher position than Sully. Like, he's a schemer, and that's where his strengths lie. So he's still an intelligent character, and that's what makes him far more threatening. If he was a dithering, blumbering dumbass, then he wouldn't be scary. You'd just be like, wow, this character sucks. He
is very, like, you'll have, like, we'll get into Mr. Waternoose soon later, but I guess it's more of a Mr. Waternoose thing. Waternoose still kind of just doesn't like him. You'll see him squabbling. He's still like, he prefers Sully.
I love that. I love that because I love that for a couple of reasons. That Waternoose still doesn't get along with Randall, because it shows that, even though they're a team, they don't get along. So there's not that respect aspect between the two of them, ultimately leading to their downfall. I feel like that's a great it's a great fucking words losing me. It's a great comparison to Mike and Sully, in that Mike and Sully respect and trust one another, and so when their plans go well, that's how they defeat the villains. Whereas the villains, they don't trust one another, so their plans ultimately fail. But also I like that because it shows Waternoose, because we can get into Waternoose as a villain now. It shows that he is not entirely a mustache twirling villain. He is. You can make the argument that he is, because he has the line, I'd kidnap 1,000 children before I let this company die, which is, the definition of evil. And he is a CEO. He is a rich CEO type character. You don't necessarily want to humanize that kind of character. I get it. But I like that he still has morals as a CEO. And depth, exactly. So he respects Sully. He doesn't want to necessarily banish Sully. He sees that as a detriment to his company, but he's willing to do it to save his ass and go through with Randall's plan. I love that. So he still has regret. That doesn't necessarily make him sympathetic, but it makes him far more interesting than if he was just like, no, I never liked you, Sully. I was always evil. I never trusted you. It's like, that would be that would be stupid. Whereas here, this is a lot smarter. And and again, I love the line of Sullivan was twice the scarier you'll ever be, to show like these two genuinely do not respect each other, even though they're working together.
And it doesn't undermine like earlier lines in the film, like where because he's a twist villain.
Yes,
but you see like the scenes that you see earlier where they are like do have a good relationship.
It shows that
those weren't, Waternoose wasn't being fake. Like he is here for the bottom line.
He genuinely
respects Sullivan.
He genuinely did mean what he meant when he said that Sully is one of the best. Now, you can also interpret that as him not necessarily caring for Sully as a person, but as an employee, which is still fucking evil as shit. But the movie never makes that clear. They're never just like, oh, I never actually cared about you. I only saw you as an employee. You're just a number to me, a statistic or whatever. Like, you can interpret it that way, but the movie never makes that obvious because, again, I think interpretation is key. What we get is so smart, though, because, yeah, it's just so good. It's so good to see a twist villain like this. Yeah, where his twist is shocking, and it doesn't feel like it comes out of nowhere. Like the writers were just writing like, I don't know, Water Noose is also a villain. Why not? Like, it feels like they had this plan from the start.
Yeah, and yeah, you do have the line is like, I can't remember what the specific line. It's something along the lines of, like, I'd do anything to save my company or something along those lines. He does say, like, earlier when he's talking to Sully, but yeah, like, I'll kidnap 1,000 children and let this company die.
I'll kidnap 1,000 children before I let this company die.
Yeah, he says it earlier in the film is like, I'd do anything to save this company.
I'd do anything to save this company. Yeah.
It just feels like it doesn't feel unnatural when he says it. No. Then you realize what anything entails.
Yeah, he is a business owner after all. He has the company's interests in mind. So yeah, so when he starts kidnapping children, it's because he has the company's best interests in mind. He's blinded by greed. This isn't just like, oh, I'm so evil, I'm going to kidnap children for the fuck of it. It's like, no, he's doing so for a reason. And that makes it far more terrifying because you know that he had the best interests in mind. He just did it in the worst way possible.
Yeah. Like the best interest for his interests. And like, yeah, you say you don't want to like humanize it, but that is real. Like people try to justify stuff like this.
Oh yeah. And that makes it far more scarier in my mind.
Yeah.
Like that people are trying to justify that kind of stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
He's deluded. I think it would be fair. Like, delusional. He does like miss like the problems of what he's doing. Like, how this is messed up.
He is the villain at the end of the day. You're not supposed to sympathize with the villain. You can understand him. Like, I understand why he's doing this stuff. As fucked up as it is to say, I understand why he wants to kidnap 1,000 children before he lets his company die. But that's the thing is, like, I understand. I don't sympathize.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah,
hopefully no one does.
Yeah, hopefully no one does. Exactly. But it's great villain writing. Just some of the best villains Pixar has ever written. Not my favorite, but definitely up there. These two are just, and the fact that they're in the same movie, like the fact that this movie has two of the best villains Pixar has ever written. Like usually Pixar just has a good villain in one of their movies. No, they have two really great villains in their movie. That's impressive.
And the them getting rid of Randall's fun too. I do like the Mom, another gator in the house.
Another gator? Give me that shovel. Oh my god, yeah. So they just throw.
Yeah, you have. We mentioned it briefly. Yeah, you got when Boo gets them like, and she she's not scared of him anyway. That's a really good moment.
That's a great moment.
What she says.
That's a great moment when Boo and Sully and Randall are in that random kid's bedroom. I don't know. The kid just wasn't asleep there, I guess. Who knows? It doesn't matter. But yeah, you think Sully's just going to fall out of the door. And that's when Boo is ultimately like, okay, I'm going to get over my fears of this lizard creature thing that keeps tormenting me. Obviously she doesn't say that out loud, but it's translated through her facial expressions, through the animation, through her coming to grips with beating the shit out of Randall with a baseball bat.
That's right, he's gone.
That's right, Boo, you did it. He's gone. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then it leads to again a funny scene where she's beating the shit out of him with the baseball bat, and he's changing colors. That's fun, but it is also a great character moment because again, she's overcoming her fears, and so then she's no longer afraid of this stupid lizard that keeps tormenting her. She's overcome her fear. It's a great character moment. You're like excited that this character triumphed over their fears. You're like, great. Oh, it feels nice. And then they just they find a random. They find a random closet door and just throw Randall out into the human world, and he ends up in Florida.
Which is like the disappointing thing is if you think about it, like obviously like Mike and Sully got banished, and they were able to get out of that situation pretty easily.
Mhm.
Like I don't know how. Like if you think about it too much, it's not the most. And unless Randall died from shovel beating,
Yeah, but
it's not the most permanent solution they found.
Right.
And then Monsters Inc. The Bash Monsters at Work for a moment. They do kind of it's not exactly a retconning, but they show immediately after he gets beaten by the shovel, and one of the guys from Monsters University shows up and beats up the family. He shows up immediately. Somehow.
This sounds awful. See, I started watching Monsters at Work before we started recording this. I got maybe like the first few minutes of the first episode. First of all, the animation looks like shit. But also, oh god, I don't know. You know what? I haven't seen enough.
I never saw the episode. I saw the clip on Twitter. So
okay.
I can't like.
Yeah.
But what I saw from the clip, I was very not happy with.
What I'll say is that
it's like Worthington or whatever, the guy who runs the president of Roar Mega Roar, he shows up.
Oh, the Nathan Fillion character, yeah.
And like you only see the outside shot of the trailer, like in the film. It's just his shadow shows up and he like beats up the family.
That's so cringy.
That's kind of
I will say I started Monsters at Work. I think the animation looks like garbage. I haven't seen enough of it where I can truly say it's a bad show. I just can't say I like it from what I've seen so far. I'll get to probably watching as much as I can, and then I'll probably just drop it if I really just can't stand it. But
there's not a lot of Micah Sully in it. Like I watched like 5 episodes. Like they have there is one that follows them. It's not the most interesting thing.
Yeah,
I think they have a good like starting point of like, okay, let's take a monster who just like just graduated for who just got like a scarer who just finished college or whatnot, and let's put him in this situation now that he only
isn't it weird that it takes place a couple seconds after the first movie ended, yet Mike and Sully sound 20 years older? Suspicious.
Yeah. That's another this classic situation. Yeah, like the timeline does not make a ton of sense where you're just gonna put it immediately afterwards. Like I'm pretty sure it took a little while for Monsters Inc. to kind of reset. Like it's the kind of thing where maybe it doesn't make the most sense to think about it, right. Because like they're just wrapping stuff up nicely for Monsters Inc.
Sure. Well, can we talk about? So we talked about how Randall's defeated, because again, you can make the argument that Randall could easily get back into the monster world. I feel like this is a great ending for him as a character in the movie's context. Like we don't need him in the movie anymore, so that's why they do that. But anyway, then the way they defeat Waternoose is a little more clever.
So iconic.
Oh, it's so iconic. So iconic. Because not only does it have one of the most iconic lines in the movie, "I'll kidnap 1,000 children before I let this company die." It's great because they outsmart Waternoose. They don't need this heavy action. They don't need this heavy action climax like they just had with Randall running around the doors part of the factory. We already had that exciting climax, so the way that we're going to defeat this villain is a lot more subtle, a lot more like using our brains to outsmart him rather than some exciting action climax. And I think
and you give him you give Waternoose this moment of triumph too, kind of where he feels like he's got him captured, and you get to like fully expound, let him have like his basically his monologue, and like they're intentionally letting him do that.
He starts monologuing.
It gives you the opportunity to like let him expound on his character now, because we do have like a short period of time where he's actually like fully transitioned to villain. Like you get to have that moment. And then of course the fact that like it calls back to the beginning is, I don't know about you guys, but I spotted several key mistakes. Let's look at my favorite, shall we?
And then, they recorded it, so they have evidence of him just straight up admitting to conspiracy and fraud and whatever.
It's like it's a set like, I'd like to compare it to like the villain like declaring their full intentions on. This is a lot more naturally than something like Coco.
Sure,
that kind of does the same thing. I think that he should have he really doesn't need to be doing this. like he doesn't need to like be explaining like his like water. It makes sense that Waternoose would want to try to explain everything to Sully because he does like value Sully's opinion. I think he wants to convince like it's not like his main like interest, you know, like say Palpatine, but like he does respect Sullivan enough to like want to like like make his argument clear.
Yeah.
And also, yeah, it's like there's a clear reason why he's chasing Sullivan and wants to like, or like, yeah, like get him out of his way.
Yeah, and it's not even
and
like
obviously,
it
of
goes
course,
on...
he also thinks he's in the like confines of he's like there, like he feels like he's in complete silence. Like he thinks that everyone else ran the other direction.
Yes,
and it's just him and Sully. Like all the cops or whatever went elsewhere, so they're alone and they're in this room. And
yeah,
wouldn't be any cameras. He thinks he's in Boo's room.
Yeah, what I like about that scene too is that it's only like 30 seconds long. It's not terribly long. So there's not a lot of over explaining. Like he just explains what he needs to Sully.
Mm-hmm. And enough that, you know, it's incriminating.
That it's incriminating. Exactly. Yeah. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah,
I don't know if I have anything else to say.
Yeah, I think we got that. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, like it's it does, like they don't steal each other's thunder too. Like you said, like they're not like it's not a big action sequence, but yeah, it's a huge character moment.
Yes. It's still an exciting part of the climax.
Yeah. And yeah, they get us twice with it too, where it's you don't realize it's the sim. Like it's not cheap. Like they pulled the simulation gag on us twice now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
it doesn't feel cheap. It's almost kind of it's played off humorous. Yeah, it's like Waternoose is suddenly like Waternoose is in control this entire time. Like he's the one who's teaching him, and suddenly he's like completely out of his element for a moment.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, it's kind of humorous again for as dark as what's going on. It kind of plays off humorously.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is the strengths that this movie has. The comedy is impeccable, but it's not distracting from the truly dramatic moments.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I guess we could we'll talk about Roz for a moment.
Ooh, Roz is a character.
The main character.
The main character. No. I realize that Roz is again one of those characters that I just quote constantly. Your stunned silence is very reassuring.
Very reassuring.
Oh god, my throat's gonna hurt from doing that. But yeah, but she has so many great lines and moments that you just think that she's just the cranky secretary type character. Until the very end when it's revealed, no, she was an undercover agent the whole time. Yeah. Which is humorous.
Always watching.
It's humorous, but then it is also, it does add a little layer to the movie where it's like, oh, you go back and you realize, oh, she was there the whole time. It's interesting. And it also just makes it seem as though like, you know, there's some, even though she's not technically an employee, but there is some, there's some there's some genuineness to the people or the characters in this world. It's not just not everybody is far gone like Randall or Waternoose. Like there is some genuine I hate when I run out of words. But you get what I'm saying. There is there is a genuine grounded feeling, actual moralness to this character as opposed to something like Waternoose or Randall running amok. It's more comforting, I would feel. Yeah,
and I think it just plays well with like the idea, like everyone in this film is relatively purposeful.
Oh yeah,
like that's true. Like, the number of running gags, like you got the I'm trying to think of I was thinking the janitor. I'm trying to think how many moments, because I get this confused of like what's in the movie and what's like in the blooper reel at the end. Like how many scenes did the janitors actually have in this film?
There was a Chalubi baby.
Oh, that's a different guy. Yeah, different guy.
You're thinking of the guys who are just like, hey, Mr. Sullivan,
go get him, Mr. Sullivan.
Yeah,
you idiot! It's not Sullivan, it's Sullivan.
We're never gonna work in this town again.
Keep rolling.
That's in the blooper reel. That's not real.
Yeah, that's not a blooper reel. But they are. This so awesome.
Yeah,
during the
they are They are purposeful though, because they are the ones who do the door shredding towards the beginning, where they're the ones in charge of showing like what happens when a door is no longer needed. And so that's when later on, when Roz is like, you have to say goodbye to Boo now and bring me a door shredder. He's like, well, I can't see her again. And he's like, and she's like, that's the way it has to be. But then she does let them have 5 minutes. She's like, I'll give you 5 minutes. That's a great moment of being like, look, there's protocol we have to follow.
That's a great moment.
But I'm willing to give you 5 minutes alone to say goodbye, which is, that's perfect. Because then we do get the scene of Sully saying goodbye to Boo, which is a very heart-wrenching scene. Not heart-wrenching in an obnoxious way, like a lot of later Pixar could be, where it feels as though the climax or the emotional, like there's like a moment in a Pixar film, in a lot of Pixar films, where like there's a moment where the movie has to stop and let you like just eviscerate your heart and be so heart-wrenching and sad. And it feels as though a lot of modern ones feel as though they're lab tested to make you cry and make you sad, as opposed to naturally making you sad. Like this is a moment where it doesn't go too far, but it's the emotions, the melancholic emotions are still present. Because there is that moment where, Boo is like showing him all the toys. It's a great moment because you get a couple Pixar cameos. You get Jessie, you get Nemo, you get the Pixar ball. But it does feel like she's naturally showing Sully like, hey, these are all the toys I play with.
She acts like a kid, and that's just kids are great.
And then he finally has to be like, Kitty has to go now, and then they hug, and you see the tears fill up in Sully's eyes. That's a great shot in animation. The fact that you can tell that he starts to cry, like, holy shit, dude. But it's not like an emotional moment to your nads being like, you're supposed to be crying now, cry. It's like, no, it's delivered very naturally, and it's a very quiet moment too, and it's just perfectly paced. And so then it leads to Boo just being like, oh, gotta get up out of the bed, open the closet, Boo, and it's just a closet again. You're like, oh, and then it hard cuts to the door shredder shredding the door. You're like, fuck, man. But again, it's not obnoxious, and it's not to the point that you're sobbing your eyes out. I mean, maybe you are, but it doesn't feel like it's made to make you sob your eyes out. It's perfectly naturalized, and I appreciate that.
You get both sides. It's like, Boo doesn't understand what's going on, and Sully is, like, he understands why, but it's like, so he's not like, he can't, and that's part is like, he knows he can't fight this. He knows, like, he's trying to like from a reasonable perspective, like, he knows that this like can't be like, he understands like why they're doing what they're doing. So he doesn't like fight it or anything. But it's a very emotional moment. You know how he's acting the entire time.
Absolutely.
Like how he's grown to appreciate her.
Yeah. Now I will say, through recent rewatches of this film, I have started to realize that maybe I'm not the biggest fan of the absolute last minute ending. Because now, not to say that I don't like it at all. Obviously, I still like it because it has some really great moments. You have the scene revealing that now things are going to be okay. Everything is about laughs now. That's not about screams. It's a funny moment because you see all these characters like trying to come up with jokes. Mike with his jokes is great. Of course, I was the ball. Of course, I was the ball.
The ball.
Like, that's great. I noticed this, like,
best 3 years of my life.
Kindergarten, best 3 years of my life. I noticed there was the Frank Oz character. He like takes off his glasses and he puts on some Groucho Marx glasses that have 3 eye holes and 2 noses with mustaches. That's funny. It does seem a little kind of goofy how it's just like, isn't it weird that now we discovered laughs are 10 times more powerful than screams? It's like, that's convenient, but you know, it's the end of the movie. I'm willing to forgive it. It's like, fine, whatever. But then we do get the scene where Mike reveals that he has built Boo's door again, and in order for it to be opened, you need the last piece. And I'm realizing I'm realizing why they had this scene. I'm thinking there was a version of this movie where they don't end with Sully getting the door back up and running again, because it almost feels like the movie puts that in as sort of a compensation for the previous scene of it being so sad. But ultimately, I don't think it's necessarily needed, because the previous scene was not like an emotionally devastating moment where Sully leaves Boo. I'm not like so destroyed that I need to see them together again. You know, I was recently watching the Alien movies, as I said, 9.5 hour episode. And it's something interesting with the first two Alien movies I noticed is that they have such miserable scenes in those movies where everything's just keep going wrong and wrong after one after the other. It's just going wrong. And up until the very last minute where you as an audience member are allowed to breathe easily because now Ripley has gotten away from the xenomorphs.
Yeah.
And there's no like traditional horror sting where it's like, the xenomorph is actually back. It's like, no, the movie ends in a way that's very emotionally satisfying for you, going through this whole ordeal of just bad shit happening after bad shit, this miserable experience. And so now finally the character is allowed to have a very happy ending. Whereas here, the Monsters, Inc. is not a miserable film to sit through. It's quite funny, in fact. So this tacked on ending of Sully meeting Boo again does feel kind of tacked on in that sense, just to compensate for the misery you just went through when there wasn't any misery going through. Now, I will be completely fair and say that I'm glad it just ends on Sully opening the door and going Boo, and then you hear her say Kitty, but you don't ever see her. You just see Sully's reaction, and that's how the movie ends.
It just finishes on his face.
Yeah. So even though the ending feels a little tacked on, it's still very smart in restraining itself from going so far into happy and laughing and being like, oh, everything's okay, everybody. It's like, no, they leave some things a little ambiguous, and I respect that. Again, it's just something I noticed watching this film again, because I feel as though some people might have a bit of a problem with that ending, just being like, it doesn't leave a lot up to the imagination. But I feel like even though it doesn't, I think it still does. I think there is still enough being left up to the imagination, despite it being a little too happy. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. I see what you're going for. I kind of disagree because it's not supposed to be like a heavy film.
No,
and
that's
so I think
that's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't have to be. Like, I'm just saying I feel as though the ending feels as though it was trying to compensate for a heavy film when it wasn't. You know?
Yeah. I guess fair. I think it makes sense. I think also with like the scare, it doesn't feel as like this. The scaring doesn't feel quite as like well fleshed out, but I think it also just needs to kind of be there for the sake of they don't want to have like this like big moral conflict of like they want to kind of like make it more like morally clear that like we don't need to scare kids because we have this like you don't have to have the conflict of those scream shortage versus scaring kids. Like they don't have like an easy solution where you like like they compare to like real life, like have a clean energy solution where there's not any like moral issues with it.
It's more so just there for the sake of a happy ending, and that's fine. That's I'm completely fine with that. It is meant for a younger audience, a family audience, I would say, because even with us as adults, we still get something out of that film. But I still think it works. It doesn't feel cheap. I want to make that clear. I'm just pointing out. I've been thinking about these kinds of things upon rewatching this film now as an adult.
I will also say I do really like. I think it's a really good moment for Mike too that he puts the door back together.
Oh, dude, him like exposing his hands all cut up and band-aided up, and he's just like, it took a lot. And it's just like, oh, that's a great shot. Yeah, it's a great moment for them as friends to show that even though Mike is a bit of a, like I was saying earlier, he is a bit of an egotist. He's not unlikable. And he does have
Right.
his moments of selflessness like this, where he's actually going out of his way to do something nice for his friend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just a real it's a nice moment. Yeah, I think that like it didn't need to be there, but you want to feel happy for it.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm not angry
I
that
just
it's there.
feel-
Yeah, it doesn't ruin the movie. I'm not just like 0 out of 10. This movie's ruined now because there's moments in there. It's like, no, I'm just
Yeah.
pointing out my grievances that I've come up with it. But ultimately,
Mhm.
it doesn't matter. I still like that they included this ending because it's part of the movie.
Mhm.
It's over 20
Yeah.
years old. We can't really go back and change it.
Yeah, you could do a meat canyon, dude. Have you seen that video?
I've just started getting into Meat Canyon recently, so no, I probably haven't.
It's I warmed up to it. Like, it's funny. It is. So,
I love
my
Meat
God.
Canyon. He's so funny. I love his
Yeah,
podcast, Creepcast, but
his Monsters Inc. video like takes the cake is kind of offensive, at least in my world, just because I hold Monsters Inc. in such high regard. Like,
Sure.
it's one of the most offensive things he does.
oh, I love offensive stuff, so I would probably love this video.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's specifically offensive to the character.
Sure.
Like, it's not like yeah, it's not like like offensive and yeah, like racial or anything like that. Yeah, it's just like it's incredibly disrespectful to the characters in the film.
I'm
Yeah,
sure.
so, like,
Yeah,
just
because
be warned.
yeah, because I'm sure it's disrespectful for the characters because it's a parody and it's a
Yeah.
YouTube parody. So like I'm not expecting accuracy. Like it's not like it's a movie review. It's not like the Nostalgia Critics Disney December where he actively just does not give a shit for the movie. It's like, okay, in that
Mhm.
moment you need to pay respect to the characters because you're reviewing the fucking movie. Whereas I feel like here he's just
Yeah.
doing whatever he wants. It's like, yeah, you know what? Fine. Like that makes sense to me.
Yeah. There are some iconic line deliveries though that like,
Okay.
I definitely reference it a decent amount. I just don't like the context.
Yeah, I'm sure. No, I completely understand. It's not for everybody, but
Yeah.
I gotta watch this now after the episode.
Any other thoughts about this one?
I do have a couple of notes I want to talk about. That's not necessarily related to the plot. But I just wanted to say, one of the things I wanted to mention was I used to have, and I don't remember which, but maybe people can help out. There used to be, it was either McDonald's or Burger King had toys for this movie. And one of the toys was a CDA character, one of the people in the yellow suits.
Yeah.
And I can't remember which one I had. I feel like there's a couple of them throughout the movie where I'm like, I have a memory of thinking it's that one, but I don't remember. I think it was either the one who vacuums up the contents of the sock they blow up off of George Sanderson, or it's one that points at Mike running away with what they think is Boo. But I don't remember which one. But I just wanted to mention I had like a Monsters Inc. toy like that as a kid, and I remember that very clear as day. I just don't.
Yeah.
I remember having the toy. I just don't remember which character it was.
Yeah. And speaking of, we got to mention 2319 just briefly. That's definitely
one of the funniest scenes.
It's one of the most iconic running gags.
2319. We have a 2319. Oh, not
George
the CDA.
is doing great. He's like George's like a brother to me. 2319. We got a 2019.
George and I are like brothers. Yeah. It's great because they take that scene so seriously where, the CDA comes in immediately and they just tackle him to the ground. They like, they're going after a little girl's sock that's just on this monster. They grab the sock with like pliers or something like that and put it on the ground and they blow it up.
Yeah, and then just as they keep coming back to it, just gets more and more ridiculous. I mean, you have George with the locker and all this stuff all the like the toilet stuff that Sully had. Yeah, just falls on him.
Yeah, exactly. And then
of course the end where Mike's like, catch.
Yeah, 2319, 2319.
They all tackle each other.
Oh, it's so good. To go off the CDA, there's that scene where they escape from Harryhausen's and the CDA's surrounding Harryhausen's. In the original cut of the movie, they blow up Harryhausen's. So in the actual theatrical in the actual cut, they like put this weird green dome over it, kind of like this weird holographic dome.
Like magnetic field or something.
Yeah,
like
just to like kind of
decontamination
contain, decontamination field. But in the original cut, they blow it up. And when did the movie come out in 2001?
November 2001.
Yeah, November of 2001.
Very calm time. Nothing significant happened.
Yeah, something significant happened a couple months before. I don't know if you remember.
I've forgotten. I knew I wasn't supposed to, but I did.
It's interesting how they changed that because of 9/11. I know they changed a couple of things.
You got like Spider-Man that came out around the same time.
You have
like,
Lilo and Stitch, where they
Lilo and Stitch.
Originally they had the gigantic plane like fly through the city, but they're like, so they had them fly through like the hills of Hawaii or whatever. Yeah. So they changed this movie, and I'm just thinking that's wild that they changed the movie a couple weeks before before releasing. Because it doesn't look that out of place, the whole magnetic field thing. And it is just a small thing.
I think the explosion is probably funnier.
I think it's funnier too. I think it's funnier. They just straight up blow up the restaurant.
Yeah. I think it's what they did like serves the plot well. Like it serves the plot, but it's not as funny. Like the explosion would serve the plot and also be funny.
It is a lot more striking of an image. I'll say that. The fact that they have like this green magnetic field, because I remember as a kid the fucking sound effect of it just being like, I'm just like, whoa, that's what are they doing? Whereas I feel like if they had just exploded it, one, it would be funnier, and two, I would understand what it is.
They blow up the sock too. So like,
they blow up the sock too. Yeah,
blow up everything.
Yeah, so if they blow up everything, that would have been more constant. Right? You know what? It's fine. It's not a big deal. Like, I just think it's.
I think it's an interesting context.
It's interesting. Release the explosion cut. Yeah, it is interesting from a context standpoint of being like, oh, when this movie came out, things were kind of.
Is that shot on YouTube anywhere?
I'm sure. Yeah, you know? I'm sure you could find it on YouTube. Just the fucking Harryhausen's exploding. Which, by the way, it's called Harryhausen's as paying homage to famous stop motion animator Ray Harryhausen.
Yeah.
There is another thing I wanted to mention, again, not related to the plot of the movie, but again, when I was a kid, I remember going to...
that shot is on YouTube.
Yes.
Just to confirm.
Good. But anyway, so I remember as a kid going to see Monsters, Inc. on ice. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
No. Okay. So
I've not.
As a kid, I went into the city to the arena where they play hockey. So that was TD Garden in Boston. I'm sure it was like a national thing that they toured around, but like I went to the one specifically in Boston where we go into the rink where they usually play hockey, but instead they put on a show. They put on Monsters Inc. on ice, where that's pretty much they're recreating the movie, but just on ice. So they have like people in these costumes that are supposed to be the fucking characters. And I remember being kind of annoyed with it because they don't tell the movie exactly how it goes. Like there's this one specific part I remember where, it's the scene where Sully puts Boo in the bed. And then she gets scared of the closet. And so Sully's just like, oh, you're afraid that Randall's going to come popping out of the closet. It's empty. See? And he goes, no monsters in here. Well, now there is. Like, there's that space where he goes, well, now there is, because he goes into the closet. In the on ice version, he goes, no monsters in here. Well, now there is. And that always bothered me that there's no break between him saying those things. Because they just replayed John Goodman's audio from the movie over the loudspeakers. And they just had like this weird Sully puppet, just like it never changed faces because, well, you couldn't articulate his face. So it was just him with this creepy, like big Sully smile. He's just like, no monsters in here. Well, now there is. And he just doesn't move his face. So that was a weird fucking ice show. I don't know why my parents brought me to that as a kid.
Yeah.
But I did get a sweet Monsters Inc.
While we're on that scene, I want to say just quick while we're on that scene, I think that's another good character for Sully, because like you see his progress. Like at that point in time, he doesn't understand like he's kind of like ununderstanding with like he knows why Boo's scared, but he's kind of like dismissive of it.
Yeah.
Because it's like this is still just something natural to him. Like this is just the way things are at that point in time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, it is such a great character moment. Yeah, it's a great, and it's again, I quote it all the time. No monsters in here. Well, now there is.
Yeah.
Can we also talk about the fact that this was one of the first movies to be nominated for Best Animated Feature, and it lost. It lost to Shrek, which I think was devastating. Yeah.
Not better than Shrek, though. This is... sorry, this is... I misspoke. This is better than Shrek. Shrek is not better than Monsters, Inc. I love Shrek, not better than Monsters, Inc.
I would have to agree, yes. I think, ultimately, out of the original 3 that got nominated for Best Animated Feature, Monsters, Inc. is my favorite, then Shrek, then Jimmy Neutron. Look, I love Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius as much as the next guy, too. I love that film.
That's tough competition.
That is tough competition, yeah. Jimmy Neutron never had it. Like it would have never won. I'm sorry. Like
be happy to be there. Be happy to be there.
Yeah, I love that movie to death, but it had zero chance up against Shrek and fucking Monsters, Inc. Yeah. But anyway, so Monsters, Inc. I do like more than Shrek, but I think ultimately I'm glad Shrek won because I feel as though Shrek would have been the bigger gamble as an animated feature. As opposed to Monsters, Inc. Because Monsters, Inc.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy that Pixar didn't win that first one.
Yeah.
Like, it is DreamWorks.
Yeah. I think ultimately...
They got their wins later. But
yeah, they did get their wins later. And I am happier with something like The Incredibles winning Best Animated Feature. But I do feel as though Shrek winning... I feel as though it was necessary. It's kind of a way to kind of humble Pixar. Ultimately, it didn't matter because they still made bad movies later on anyway, but, you know. But, yeah, I think ultimately Shrek winning was the better outcome. But I do think it's a shame because Monsters, Inc. is such a good film, regardless of it not winning Best Animated Feature.
Yeah. And I do like that that was the first one where, they had the character, they animated the characters in the crowd. Like, that was fun.
That was cute.
I'm trying to remember. It's been a while since I've seen it, but yeah, whatever.
Yeah. I feel like I have a memory of Sully looking kind of disappointed when Shrek wins.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm guessing they probably did like an animation for each if they won or lost.
Oh, they would have had to. Yeah. They would have had to.
Yeah, I'm guessing they wouldn't tell them in advance.
No. Unlike remember that time when it was 2018 when the year was 2019 when Spider-Verse won the Best Animated Feature, but it was up in competition with Ralph Breaks the Internet, and Disney had sent out stickers or like cardboard cutouts advertising that Ralph Breaks the Internet had won Best Animated Feature. It's like, really? You put all your confidence in Ralph Breaks the Internet, Disney? Like, really? Of all the movies to be that confident for, like, that's just bizarre to me.
Yeah, I'm watching it right now. Yeah, Billy Crystal's up on the stage. And Billy Crystal's going to be in the audience as Mike Wazowski too.
Right. Yeah, I would have imagined Billy Crystal was hosting that year.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Who was in the Shrek and Donkey? And let's see what happens when they announce
Jimmy and Goddard.
yeah, Jimmy Goddard in there. Where is it? Where instant replay? This is excellent content.
I'll cut it down.
Oh yeah, they're not. Yeah. Mike's forcing a smile. They're strained. They're not happy. They're not happy.
They're not happy.
they both have strained smiles. They're not happy.
Again, it is a shame because Monsters, Inc. is the better film, I would argue. But
Jimmy Neutron has electronic hands clapping.
He's so
got,
petty for that.
Hands clapping.
He's so petty for that. That's good. Yeah, that's all I had for notes. I don't know if you had anything else before we get into this DVD.
Like everything.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think it's safe to say we both love this film to death. I think it's one of my favorite Pixar's. It is definitely up there. Like, I would say maybe top 5 Pixar for me. If not top 5, definitely top 10. But like, still, it is one of my favorites from Pixar and one of my favorite films in general. It's just such a childhood staple, a childhood classic. I love it so much.
Mm-hmm. It is really tough competition.
Like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm not like gonna be a stranger about it. But yeah, it's like it would be hard. I do consider this my favorite, but yeah, it's like between like Incredible, Toy Story 2, Ratatouille.
Yeah, and those are like some of my favorites.
Like, those are like it can kind of vary from moment to moment which one I'm saying is my favorite.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I don't know. I call it. I'd say I'm in the camp of where like Monsters Inc. my favorite. I would probably consider Incredibles or one of the other three to be the best.
Yeah, it's like one of those things where like they're all kind of at the top. I feel like a lot of people have these movies at the top anyway. You know.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's
WALL-E. I forgot to mention WALL-E.
Yeah, WALL-E's definitely up there for me. So it varies from person to person. But yeah, I would say The Incredibles is my favorite, but that's an episode for another time. But yeah, to go into this DVD, it is quite simplistic. It is a Disney DVD. It was one made in 2013. And the reason I know that is because one of the first trailers is for Monsters University on it. And I feel as though this DVD is so lacking because it doesn't have much in terms of bonus features. It just has an audio commentary. Like I was saying, we were going to start this episode and then we decided to, then you reminded me of the bloopers because the DVD version does not have the bloopers during the credits. And I don't think it has the bloopers as a bonus feature because it doesn't list it as one and I didn't see them on the menu. And that is obnoxious because I love the bloopers. So we stopped. We before we even started recording, I was just like, all right, we're gonna watch the bloopers now because I completely forgot to. But yeah, so what I'm trying to get at is I think I'm gonna get rid of this DVD because I need something more substantial. Obviously, I think getting it on Blu-ray would be the way to go. Maybe one that has, if not the bloopers at the credits, just the bloopers as a bonus feature in general. Like I just need better access to the bloopers. And maybe even one that has the For the Birds short somewhere in the bonus features because again, my VHS tape had For the Birds as the short before the movie. I rewatched it recently on Disney Plus, so I was like, oh shit, I remember this. This is also part of my Monsters Inc. viewing experiences, For the Birds.
Yeah. And I guess we've never really been in a situation to discuss a theatrical short before the movie in one of these podcasts.
Yeah, it's a great short, For the Birds. I love it. It's so funny. I love those little fuckers. So, but anyway, if I ever get, I'd like to get this movie on Blu-ray because you said you have a steelbook version. What's that like? Elaborate on that.
It's the I think I mentioned it has like this stent. It's not stencil or the holographic cover. It's the 3D release. I cannot say, I did not actually watch this version though. I got the original DVD release. At least my parents do, so I just watched that version. But yeah, that one has all the extras and stuff.
Okay, so yeah,
it's got the bonus features discs. Yeah. And yeah, so it's got the For the Birds. It's got the blooper reel. Yeah, the blooper reel is iconic. We were talking about beforehand how the I believe it's only the three. It's Toy Story 2 or Bugs Life first, then Toy Story 2, then Monsters Inc. were the three where they did the extensive fake blooper reels that they made.
Yeah, because those are Bugs Life, great. Toy Story 2, then Monsters Inc. Yeah. Which that is a shame that they don't include those anymore. Which I feel like it'd be a lot more to animate those kinds of things, so I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say I think even if I don't get it on Blu-ray, maybe I'd like that special edition DVD from the early 2000s because I love DVDs from the early 2000s, whereas this was a DVD from 2013, so the box is a piece of shit. So anything that's better than this specific DVD, I would like of Monsters Inc.
Yeah, and the menus. Well, I remember the menu. The menu is fun. You go through the doors to go to the different sub menus. And
that's cute.
To choose what you're going through. Yeah, you walk through the door to get to the next menu.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Start the movie. The classic early 2000s DVD.
Yeah, can't beat them.
Don't
except when you can.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else on this one?
I think I'm ready to go to college. Know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. Gonna go back to the past.
Play these shitty games that suck ass.
Potentially.
Well, we talked about.
Let's say theoretically.
Yeah, let's say theoretically. So we talked about Monsters Inc. We might as well talk about the prequel to Monsters Inc. that Pixar also made, that being Monsters University, as our second film we're talking about. The second Pixar film. We're already on the second Pixar film for the podcast. Look at us.
Yay.
So this is an interesting one because it's one that I basically started my entire YouTube analysis career off of, because it is my very first analysis video I ever edited way back in 2018, I want to say, was on this movie. When I was trying to be like James, because I'm like, well, if I edit for James, I can do exactly what he does. I refused to rewatch that video because I did not know what I was doing at that time. What I did do,
I knew it was there. I forgot to look back. I'm looking back at it.
Yeah, no, I refused to rewatch
maybe
it.
For your maybe for the best.
What I did do though was I found the original script I wrote for it, so I read that instead. Because I didn't get to hear my cringy voice. I could just read my cringy writing. And it's interesting because I really expected myself to be a lot more harsh to that movie, just being like kind of playing off of James or Nostalgia Critic, because those were kind of two of my biggest influences when it came to video editing at the time. So I'm thinking like, oh, I probably hated this film, but I felt as though I was being as fair as possible. And so it is a movie that I definitely have a lot of critiques for. And upon this recent rewatch, because I felt as though, it's been a couple of years, maybe I should give it another chance, because I have noticed a lot of people love defending this movie as not the worst thing Pixar has ever made. And I want to be clear, I never thought that it was the worst thing Pixar has ever made. Yeah. I never have claimed it as being like this awful movie, just like the lowest of the low, the absolute bottom of the barrel Pixar's ever made. It's like, no, it's not. It's really not. I think now more than ever, I appreciate this movie because of the shit I've seen Pixar make. I'm like, wow, this is not the worst. Thank God. So I think as though it's interesting. I'm definitely a lot more positive of it now more than ever, but I can't say I'm with a lot of people in claiming it as being either underrated or a secret masterpiece of Pixar, or just secretly just not as, I'm not as up there with the positives for this movie. I still have my critiques, but obviously we have differing opinions on that. This is just like our first episode together where we talked about The Shining, a movie we love wholeheartedly, like Monsters Inc. And now we're talking about the next movie in this duology, and that we have varying opinions on whether it's that great or not. I'll say this. I think Monsters University is far better than Dr. Sleep.
All right. I'd agree. I'd agree.
Okay, so we agree on that. Great. But all right. So anyway, that so those are my opening.
I don't know. I say it's better. I don't know if it's far better, but I'll say it's better.
Yeah, but those are my opening thoughts. I have some conflicting things with this movie, but I am willing to hear. I'm willing to understand where people are coming from when they say it's pretty good, all things considered. So anyway, please, I've been talking. You talk.
It's interesting. I say first of all, I'm being in my I feel like a lot of people in my age demographic, me included, don't really have a good understand. Like, we didn't grow the college movies that this is like loosely inspired by. Like, people were expecting going in, like, based on the the commercials were the trailers for this movie were pretty fun. But yeah, I don't have quite an appreciation for like the college films of like, I don't know, like the 80s and 90s. I just haven't watched very many of them. I don't really have much staying power in society, frankly.
I mean,
But yeah, so I think a lot of people at the time were like, a lot of the criticism I have is like, oh, another college film. No, this doesn't even this barely is even a good college film and whatnot. And yeah, I don't think that's not the primary. Like it's a kids film. It's not a. It's like it has some like college film elements, but yeah, it's a kids film. And yeah, like it's not a masterpiece. It's not a masterpiece. Like it's fairly by the numbers for most of it. But what it does do so well, and it does just as well, if not better, of handling Mike and does first film. And what I say is it's not what you'd expect from a follow-up film to Monsters Inc. It doesn't give you like it's not a sequel, so you don't have the same characters you had like at the end of the film. You don't like see like but it's a prequel, so like what it is that you don't even Mike and Sully are not at all the same characters as they are in Monsters Inc. And that's kind of what I like about it, is that you see the mannerisms are present. They're very subdued. But yeah, you kind of see how like they kind of develop like the way they characterize these two, the character arcs of them, and how they develop into more of like the guys you see in the next film is, I think, is remarkable. I think that the character writing is some of the best Pixar's ever done. And that's what I love so much about it. It has the story it tells of Mike. Both of them I think are very, very strong stories. And it's basically, you know, like those who can't do teach, or whatever the saying is. But yeah, it has a very mature perspective on that. And yeah, so like the best part of this film is a very mature thing that kids I don't think will quite grasp. But yeah, there's enough flashy things. Like it's moderately entertaining for most of the film to keep your attention while it's telling this really good character story. Like it's like a bit of a character study type thing.
Well, so let's start with the fact that yes, it is a prequel. Because this is a bit of a criticism I used to have of it that I've kind of warmed up to, the fact that it is a prequel instead of a sequel. Mm-hmm. I think at the time when I made my initial video and when I first watched it, I was very critical of the idea of there being a prequel for Monsters Inc. Because after the way the first one ends, I feel as though I want to expand more into the world of Monsters Inc. Beyond what the first movie was doing. But through really thinking about it, I think going the route of the prequel was a smart decision, because ultimately I think the ending of Monsters Inc. is so iconic and impactful that expanding upon that is not necessary. Like the reason that movie ends where it does is because there's no more story to tell. Like that's it. That's all we truly needed from these characters. And I feel as though maybe expanding upon that, like I remember I had included a quote from a Pixar higher up who was working on the movie saying, we don't want to do a sequel unless we have an actually interesting story to tell, which I guess makes the existence of Monsters at Work all the far more funnier. But I was still, that still kind of bothered me when I read that, because then it's like, okay, what does that mean for this prequel? But I think ultimately going the prequel route was the better option, because now it doesn't fuck with the ending of Monsters Inc. And you still get to be with these characters you like, and you can still expand upon the world just beforehand. So you can really dive into the world of screaming, because again, the ending of Monsters Inc. was, we don't need scaring and screaming anymore. Like we've moved on to different things. Whereas you can go back and expand upon that more in a prequel setting. So, and again, like it's not like other Pixar sequels where it's the same movie just again. This time it's before the characters were the characters that we know and love. Now, with that said, it comes with its own can of worms, prequels, because prequels are very, very difficult to pull off compared to sequels, because you ultimately know where the story is going to end up, because we've seen where it ends up. So you better make damn well sure your prequel is told in a way that you are not. It's told in a better way than you would expect it to be, because again, you have that idea of you already have the original to go to. Like, so there's no tension as to whether or not these where these characters are going to end up. You know exactly where they're going to end up. So I honestly kind of sympathize with this movie in where and what it was trying to do, because it could not have been easy to. Yeah. And I think ultimately, I think it does as good a job as it can. I just can't say I'm as impressed with it as the original.
Yeah. I don't know anyone who I try. LS Mark may have rated this actually.
Really? Higher than First Monsters Inc. That's
yes.
I mean, that has to...
maybe I know he ranked this highly. I don't know if he may have done that though. I can't say for sure, but
no offense, but that screams nostalgia to me. Like he's letting his nostalgia cloud. But you know what?
He said he hadn't he said he hadn't watched it before.
Okay. Okay. Well, so I mean, look, people can have their opinions. You know what? I'm not going to be that big of an asshole. People can have their opinions. If you truly think Monsters University is better than Monsters Inc., I can't stop you. But anyway, yeah. So I guess rewatching this film, I appreciate it not soiling the ending of the original and instead going for a story before the original. It's like, okay, that's fine. Now, with that said, there are still references to the original that I find really obnoxious. Just because I get it, they had to include them to be like, oh, remember the first movie? But then it's like, okay, we don't need these. That's the thing. I think this movie works far better completely separate from the original Monsters Inc. Like, if this really was its own thing, I feel like I'd love it a lot more.
Yeah. As far as it exists as a prequel, I like that it has a bit of like the prequel syndrome where it's like it feels the need to explain things. I think mostly with Randall for some reason, like they're really fixated on explaining things of Randall.
That's one of my least favorite parts. It's not the most Randall.
It's the fact that like they telegraph the line. I'm never gonna let you beat me again, Sullivan. And they have like the where he's squinting his eyes. Is like, oh,
see, that was so ridiculous. Charming. Yeah, that's ridiculous to a point where I think it's kind of charming. I should be angrier with that, but I'm not. I think it's so ridiculous that I think it's funny. But
and then like Mikey has to explain, or Mike has to explain. Oh yeah, you need to use your camouflage. Like the fact that he has to explain that in the first 2 minutes of the meeting, or like the first minute of the meeting, like tells him that he should go invisible more often.
That's weird, but ultimately that's just whatever. Like, this isn't the worst nostalgia pandering to a previous movie I love so wholeheartedly. I'm still just not a fan of that, because it feels like they're only including these references to make me all nostalgic and tingly, especially with the music in this film. Now, the original college-esque drumming and marching band sounding score to the film, I love that music. I think it works. It works within the context of the movie, because this is a college movie, so the college sounding like pep music, that makes complete sense, that being there. That's great. What I'm not a fan of is repurposing themes from the original in a way that feels manipulative, because they don't work in the same context as they did with the original film. I honestly think Toy Story 3 repurposing the fucking chase music worked far better than it being used in this movie, which is weird because it's supposed to work better in here because this is a Monsters Inc. universe film. Like, here's one of the things that really bothers me is its implementation of the titular Monsters Incorporated factory throughout the movie. Because when we first see it in the beginning of the film, and I know this is extremely nitpicky, but this really bothered me, but I have to say this. When we first get to, when they're having their field trip, when Mike is like, I don't know, a little kid, and he goes on a field trip to the Monsters Incorporated factory, when we see the factory for the first time, it plays this very nostalgic melodic tune that's really distracting, because it feels as though it's trying to get us all nostalgic, being like, the factory, when it's like, it's a building. Why are we playing this nostalgic music for, in the context of the film, the characters have never been to? Like, this is purely being played for the audience sake. And I hate that. And then they play later in the film when they go to the factory to like motivate the other scarers in Uzma Kappa. Now, I'm fine with this scene of them going to the factory there because, you know, yes, it is annoying that we're going back to the factory when it doesn't play a major role in the movie, but in this particular scene where he wants to motivate the characters, it's like, okay, fine, they go to the factory, whatever, I'm fine with that. But I hate the music choice where they go up to the factory and they start playing the music that they play when the monsters are walking in slow-mo, because it feels out of place, because that music is there to make you feel kind of happy that you're back at the factory. But the music played in the original in kind of a more so comedic way, not entirely comedic where it's a joke, but you know, the scene of watching them walk in slow-mo in the original is kind of comical in a sense. Like, it is supposed to be a nice moment because you have the characters in the universe being like, they're so awesome. But there is that bit of comedy to it where it's like, oh, it's so over serious, so over dramatic of them walking in slow motion to this music. Whereas here, they're using that same music, but genuinely, like, there's no irony to them using that music in this scene. And
you are seeing it from the perspective of Mike, though. Like, you're seeing it from the perspective of little kids.
Sure.
Which do, like, you see, like, they're like have this looking up to them and heroes. So I want to.
That's in that scene, like at the beginning when they use the music. Sure, yeah, because Mike as a kid is looking up to the scarers walking onto the scare floor. What I'm talking about is later in the movie when they go back to the factory to motivate the Uzma Kappa scarers. That I felt as though that use of music was inappropriate, and I didn't like it. Again, hugely nitpicky, I will completely admit, but that is one of the reasons why I think the references to the original kind of hinder this movie, because these are very distracting, very, very flawed uses of music when the use of the music in the original was perfect. And you have perfectly good original music being used in this movie. I know why they're using the music from the original. It's to get all of us who love the original to love this even more. When it's like, okay, just use what you have as original stuff, and that's what'll get me to love your film. Like, you don't need to keep reminding me that I love the original film. I already know I love the original film. Like, you take advantage of the original stuff you're using. Like we just said, I like the original college music it's using. So again, super nitpicky, but I'm just so annoyed by that.
Along the lines of what you're saying, I definitely agree that like it's, and I kind of like the general vibe is it doesn't necessarily follow up Monsters Inc. the best, because it does take a lot of like Monsters Inc.'s a very like kind of like it's a fun, loose movie, and this like takes some of those more aspects more seriously when it does. Like it doesn't. It takes the world more seriously, and that kind of conflicts with how it doesn't work super well. With how
and there are funny moments in this movie. I was laughing really hard at several times. It's like, be more of a comedy. Don't be sucking the original movie's dick so often. It doesn't do it so often that it's distracting, but the little moments that it does do, they really do add up, and they really are annoying to me.
And I do have to clear Ellis Merck's name really quick. He actually rated this Monsters Inc. #1 overall out of all every Disney.
Okay.
But he did have Monsters University 17th out of all those.
I rescind my criticisms towards Ellis Mark. I have never watched. I haven't been watching his videos recently, so I cannot. I will not claim anything.
Actually, just released a pilot episode for a show he's making.
Oh yeah, I've been meaning to watch that because I've seen a couple of people watching that. I want to watch that. Yeah,
the art style is really nice. The story was all right. The art style was nice.
Well, isn't that what's most important?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I guess we can go into an actual positive. Let's talk about Mike and Sully themselves, because I don't think I'm with you where I think it's some of the best writing for Pixar, but I think for what the movie does, it is good. This isn't
Mhm.
character assassination. I'll say that. Like, I think
Mhm.
even though these are different interpretations of the characters, because you see Mike is most definitely the main character here, as opposed to when Sully was the main character of the last movie.
Yeah.
Um, and I like that. And I do feel as though Billy Crystal is still bringing his comedic chops to the role. Like he is still undoubtedly Mike Wazowski in my mind. I can't imagine
Mhm.
anybody else doing this role. It is a little distracting to hear them be 10 years older in this movie when they're supposed to be college kids, but
Yeah.
I'm willing to forgive it because I like them in these roles so much that
Yeah.
ultimately I'm fine with that.
Mhm. And I think like so yeah first of all, Sully, yeah, he doesn't like talk. He doesn't. He does a lot of the like, or whatever. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't do a lot of talking. And yeah, I think it does flow. Like kind of as mentioned in the first movie. Like I think it flows naturally into how like their characters do like relatively like their characterization is very different between the two. But
Mm-hmm.
you see how they've developed this way. Like you look at like Mike is this huge go getter, and you can like see like they have like homages to like what they like a lot of it like does seem to derive from that like opening scene, like the opening scene with them in Monsters Inc., where they're like yeah doing the training. Like you see him doing a lot of the same training, which maybe is a little too like they don't need to do it verbatim
Mm-hmm.
necessarily. But yeah, you just see like it makes sense. Like you see like I think it's not like super obvious, but I feel like if you think about it, it makes more sense. I think that yeah, like you had like by the end of the film, Mike is kind of like had like his confidence kind of shot, and like you see like he still like no, you can still see how he would like know a lot of stuff, but he'd be a little more laid back. Like he's a little less invested in his work than Sully is by the end of the film, whereas Sully goes from being like 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 pretty lazy to like being a lot more like caring for his work, seeing like you see where Sully has developed his work ethic from like being able to respect the work that Mike is put in, like how much he cares for this and how beneficial it is. Like you can't just like there is and yeah, like the main theme like it's something you don't see a ton with the on Mike's side, whereas like you can want like in kids films you do see a lot of like you can do anything, you can like you set your dreams on, you can do it, and this kind of like really like hits hard that like yeah Mikey's just not scary, which you can some people want to debate whether or not like Mikey could actually be scary, but I think yeah like when you got like the giant eyeball kind of makes it
it,
difficult
it
for
it is freaky. But I do
yeah
understand from the context of the film that yeah, in the traditional sense, he's not scary. Um,
yeah
and yeah, I that's a big thing with this movie, and I feel like a lot of people defending it try to bring up and saying that the themes that this movie gets across, and especially tying into the ending,
yeah I say it has
that's
a very unique voice
yeah, that is the
is what I like
strongest
about it.
aspect to the film. And yeah, I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. And I feel like that ties into it being a prequel because I feel like you can only get across this kind of story through it being a story about through college, through schooling.
Mhm.
I think that
Yeah
is really a resonant theme of. So when we say theme, we're talking about the idea of not everything works out. Even if you put all your effort, all your time into one thing and wanting to achieve your goal, sometimes it doesn't work out. Like failure is
hmm
inevitable. And sometimes what you put all your effort into probably wasn't worth it in the end because things just didn't work out. And I think,
hmm
yeah, that is a very hard thing to accept in reality.
yeah
Um, and it is a hard thing to translate into a children's film because
hmm
that is a messed up lesson to learn. It is inevitable and necessary to learn because we all go through it, but
yeah
it is difficult because how do you tell a child that oh by the way uh you're gonna not succeed in a lot of things.
yeah
um and so I definitely commend the film for going through with the ending of even though they did all this effort like you know, Mike is shown to be a bookworm where he is studying his ass off, doing everything he can because he has plans, he has schemes, he has ideas of what he wants to achieve. And even with his, and you know, obviously it doesn't go through with that and he ends up getting out of the scare program. So then he gets a second chance and he's able to go through the scare games and kind of prove himself again. Even still, things don't work out. He ends up getting expelled.
Mm-hmm.
I do respect the movie for going through with that. It's like, you could have easily just ended the movie being like, the dean is now impressed and being like, wow, you guys impressed me. You're back in the scare program. And then everything's all schmaltzy and everything worked out. Ultimately, the trouble with that, though, is that we know that things do work out because because again, this is a prequel. We know in the original, they have very steady jobs that they love. And so ultimately we know things are going to work out. Whereas I feel like,
I think that's, I feel like that's too, as a benefit. Cause
sure. I think, yes, I think for me personally, I feel as though you need more ambiguity with that because again, you're still going back to that original idea of, oh, things will work out. It's like, okay, but I think you need that ambiguity to really motivate you because again, you have no idea. That's the thing. You have no idea if things will work out. But I think because it is a kids movie, you do need that. You can't be too ambiguous because then you're going to completely alienate and totally fuck with their minds. So in the grand scheme of things, I'm fine with that because I think the ideas still come across because again, they still get expelled, you know.
Yeah.
The dean still is just like sticking to her morals and being like, you're still expelled. She does kind of warm up to them being like, hey, you did surprise me. I will fully admit that. It's just, you know, I can only give you guys the saying good luck. Like there's nothing more I can do more for you is just wish you luck. It's like, you know what? For a Disney movie made in 2013, that is entirely warranted. That is very much like unexpected and I respect the hell out of that. So yeah, I agree. I think the movie's ending is its strongest aspect as to why it's not a completely forgettable Disney Pixar sequel.
Yeah.
So yeah. Again, I think even back when I made my video, I acknowledged, that is a very strong ending and a very hard theme to get across. So kudos to the film for getting that across.
Yeah. Yeah. So it plays more as like a speed bump than like a hard like road like you can't go any further. Like this is because like you do see like Mike does get his you get to work at Monsters Inc. He's just not a scare. And I think that like if for all the it does like we get a very clear like perspective of like why Mike is so confident and like that he is like he studies his ass off, he knows everything, like he has like this like early memory of like an actual scare like encouraging him, like he has this like crazy experience where he like got to go into the human world for a moment, watch a scare, and like he's had this personal like encouragement from like the actual like an actual scare. And like you can feel like I think it's not the movie's not about destiny, but it can kind of like those kind of things can kind of warp your perspective to where like he feels like this is like he has this sense of like destiny, this is what he's going to have, like this is he's a super optimistic character just as he is in Monsters Inc. I think that's what plays well to like that he's able to endure this even when like we do see like this the scene in the human world is what a lot of people point to as like the strongest moment where they like he and Sully will have that heart, which is again like he's like where he and I love like it's a great moment for Sully too. I love that he's able to like kind of explain it's like, okay, my failure is not the same as yours, but I know what failure is,
but I still have failure. Yes.
And we can connect on that. I can understand the like the difficulties, and
that's the thing with these the characterization in this movie. It is a little different than what we got in the originals, but I will agree that I can definitely see them naturally becoming their versions in the original from the versions we see in this movie. You see Sully as more of a party animal who eventually matures into a more mature and a more mature adult. And then you have Mike, who was already mature for his age and being this very smart bookworm, kind of becoming more of a party animal in his adult years because he wants to live out that kind of egotistical life because he's been this bookworm his whole life.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that like I said with the first one, that like Sully's a bit of a meathead. I do like that this is like in this film he's more of an asshole meathead.
Yeah,
it's like he's not like he's not a guy of many words in the film. Like he's not like like he acts like a social animal, but yeah, like he does a lot of like, just like I said, like that or whatever. Like he's not like a smooth talker or anything.
He is a child still because he's just getting into college. So he's not the mature adult we know him in the original.
He goes more the ass, like self-aggrandized asshole. And you see like him, like this is a very like you see how humbled he is in this film, and like you can see where that would like have this like sharp transition, like where who he becomes in the next film is like a lot more like reserved and like outward looking, like respecting the other people, So
Mike and Sully, I agree, are some of the better aspects of this movie, which is good because they are the main focus. But there are aspects to the movie that I'm not a fan of, besides the referencing the original, like some of the original stuff that this movie brings up, I'm not a fan of. And that is, I'm not as big a fan of these side characters as I am the side characters of the last movie. Uzma Kappa characters, I mean, they're fine. None of them I'm like downright offended by. I just don't find them terribly interesting. Just because I don't know, just something about them. I want to like them, but I'm not there yet where I'm like, oh, these are great characters that I'm gonna remember the same way I remember Waternoose or Randall or Celia. And speaking of Waternoose and Randall, that gets us into the antagonists of this movie, which there is no villain of this movie. There are no villains, but there are antagonists. You know, one of them could technically be Dean Hardscrabble, which I don't really find her that interesting. She's not. She is more of just an obstacle for Mike and Sully. And I do like her scene at the end where she admits, hey, you did surprise me. But I feel as though I feel like that moment would be far more impactful if I liked her more as a character. Whereas she's just kind of the hard ass Dean character. There's really not much to her outside of that. And then there's the actual antagonist, I guess you could argue. I think James was talking about this because he did the Pixar villains thing. He counted Johnny Worthington, right? The horn guy for Roar Omega Roar, who is technically the villain of Monsters University. And I gotta say, woof. Like, really? I know it's unfair to compare him to Randall and Waternoose, so I won't. I'm just saying, within the context of this movie, I really think he's still a lame villain character. Because he's not even a fun jerk antagonist. He's not even funny. Like, he's played by Nathan Fillion, who is a funny actor who can be funny in roles. But he doesn't say anything that funny. He doesn't really have anything to him that makes him interesting. I said this in my recent review. I think Extremely Goofy Movie, for as silly a movie as that is a far more interesting college movie under the Disney umbrella than this movie is. And I think purely because it has the character of Bradley Uppercrust III, who is the villain of that movie, who is a unlikable douchebag jock character. I think he's far more funny, hilarious, entertaining than Johnny Worthington. Like, if this movie had a character like Bradley Uppercrust III, then I'd probably be more inclined to like it. And I know Johnny Worthington is not the main point of the movie. He's just supposed to be kind of there. But, like, you know, there were characters in the original who were just kind of there, who are still far more interesting and likable and entertaining of a character than Johnny Worthington. Am I even saying it right? Johnny Worthington? I feel like
I think you're saying it right.
Okay, I'm just saying Johnny Worthington because that's what my brain is telling me that character's name is. I don't know if I'm right in that, by the way.
Yeah, like he's pretty. He's there. Yeah, he's not really. He's pretty.
Yeah, I don't want to necessarily say he ruins the movie for me because he doesn't, but he is a big reason as to why I'm not as impressed with this movie because the themes, as good as they are, don't feel as fully realized or not as satisfying. The characters discovering them is not as satisfying because the threat is not as interesting to me. The threat of Hardscrabble and Worthington are not as impactful to me as the threat of Randall and Waternoose.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like because like in literature, there's a couple of different like categories for like what the antagonist doesn't have to be a physical person. Yeah, I think that it's more of a it's like it's. I personally would put Hardscrabble above Worthington because he's pretty like irrelevant.
Yeah, you cut him out, the movie doesn't really change. You could replace him with a Bradley Uppercrust III type character. It'd be probably far more entertaining because you have this really entertaining character as kind of an obstacle, but not really matter in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, he's just like a regular jerk, and like both him and Hardscrabble just kind of like represent like Mikey feels like he is like it's him against the world.
Yeah,
he's gonna prove everyone wrong, and then Sully is they're almost like antagonistic towards each other.
And I'm fine with that. We don't need a straight up villain character in this story. Like just the idea of it being a competition film is enough. Like you don't need a straight up villain character, and that's fine. But then if you're not going to, then don't make Johnny Worthington so bland, and I don't know, make Dean Hardscrabble a little more interesting of a character. That's the thing, is that I feel as though the movie knows these aren't the true villains of the movie, but then they don't do anything more with them as characters. And it's just, it's really a tragedy. It's really a shame because, again, I think the movie would be far stronger if you really tweaked these characters. But again, it's 10 years old at this point, or 11 years old at this point, so it doesn't matter. You might be right, but I think about this and I just hate the idea of taking time away from Mike and Sully is the thing. No, that's the thing. You don't even have to. Yeah, you don't have to take away time from Mike and Sully. I think you can. I don't know, just something about these characters really distracts me. And I feel as though you don't need to make them. You don't need to add scenes of them being interesting. You could like even tweak the scenes you already have of them, but just maybe like dial it back and put more focus on Mike and Sully. I agree. Mike and Sully are the big things. They're the best parts of this movie, and you need to really double down on them. Maybe focus more on them. Then maybe I'd probably be more inclined to like this movie. Yeah.
As far as maybe this isn't like the most deep thing in the first place, but I do like that. Like you do have the one-on-one moment between Sully and Hardscrabble, where he's like, he starts like, "Hey, I hope there's no hard feeling." And like the whole thing is at the end, like she said, like admits that you surprised me, and like I guess her character is kind of like is very like mature, like knows everything, like she knows best on everything. And it's I do like that, like the moment where like she's able to she's. And the movie doesn't even disagree with her, and she's like, Mike's not scary. Is like Mike's kind of fighting against this immovable force of the fact that he's not scary. He can't be a scare, and like she kind of represents that, and she does get the moment with Sully where she's able to reason with them. This isn't going to happen.
I feel like
it does have the arc.
I feel like the actual character needs to be much stronger in order for these themes to really wow me, because I really just don't care for her as a character.
She's just kind of intimidating.
I guess the design is kind of
Yeah.
cool. I just,
Yeah.
again, just something. I can't, it's not even that I can entirely like zero in on what it is that bothers me about her and Worthington and other
Mhm.
characters. It's just, I just don't connect with them the same way I do with the original. And maybe that is on me and having nostalgia, but I don't know, just something about that original film, even
And
though
yeah,
I came across some criticisms upon my recent rewatch of Monsters Inc., I still came away thinking, no, this is still a very well made film. I still love it to death.
yeah, the external character is absolutely better in Monsters Inc.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I do want to give credit to the like the other Uzma Campa guys. Like they're not like not anything again, like kind of like you said, it's like not anything crazy, but I
Yeah.
do like that. I think it again. It all kind of serves Mike and Sully well. Like Mike's able to like. I like that they are able to like use these characterizations and like some of them are a little on the nose. Like you keep having like the like everyone keeps saying, "Oh, you scared me," to the pink guy
Yeah.
with all the eyes, just creepy.
Yeah. Squishy. Yeah.
But it is kind of nice how they're squishy. That's his name. But yeah, it is kind of nice though. Like they're able to like identify like all like some of the traits that they have that would be beneficial to
Sure.
like to like adapt that to their scaring style.
Yeah. There's a really great moment.
I think that's a nice character moment for Mike.
There's a really good moment, not moment, there's moments during the climax when they're actually at the scare games where you get to see them kind of use their strengths as they really zero in on them showing their strengths. Like you see Don, the mature student, like using his tentacles to kind of like crawl across the ceiling. You get the scene of the Terry and Terry walking in looking like a human, and then as they like kind of walk over, they reveal themselves as being an actual two-headed monster. Like that's a great shot. Yeah, you have Squishy kind of like moving around where you don't see him and he just kind of appears out of nowhere. No, that's a great sequence of showing their strengths as characters. I just wish their characters were far more stronger.
Right.
That's the thing.
Yeah, they can be strong. My point is like I think they're good enough. I kind of like it. It's not the
worst. It's not the worst. I agree. Like that's the thing is like you can say like, oh, it's not the worst. It's like, yeah, I agree. I think it does it does succeed far more at these things than other movies. And I appreciate that. I think that is important to, again, now more than ever, because it's been 11 years since this movie came out. A lot more Pixar films have come out since then. I think we should acknowledge the strengths this movie gets across now more than ever, because considering what we've seen from them, I wish this was one of the worst things I ever saw, because comparatively, I don't know how good we had it.
Yeah. At some point I want to discuss, how do you feel about this compared to the other Pixar sequels, or like obviously not a sequel, but what do you think about it?
So in terms of like comparing it to other Pixar expansion movies, I guess you want to say, I don't know. That's a good question.
I'd say Toy Story notwithstanding, like
okay, not including Toy Story.
They had Finding Dory.
Yeah, not including Toy Story, the Toy Story sequels. That's fair, because I mean, obviously the best Pixar sequel is Toy Story 2. Like that's not even a competition. And yes, I would even say Toy Story 3 is even much better. But yes, so comparing it to say the likes of Cars 2, Finding Dory, Incredibles 2, I really have to think about that, because a lot of these movies I haven't seen in years, and I feel like I should rewatch them. But from what I can remember, I'm willing to agree with people in saying this is one of the better Pixar expanded movies. I think I have Incredibles 2 rated higher on Letterboxd than this, but again, I haven't seen Incredibles 2 in 5 years, so I don't remember anything about it.
My urge to rewatch it is very low.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be very low, but again, I haven't rewatched it, so I don't know. But I feel as though this movie does get tiny bit better every time I rewatch it, as opposed to something like Cars 2 or Cars 3 or Finding Dory, where I don't really want to rewatch those movies. So I think in the grand scheme of things, I'm willing to acknowledge this as being one of the better Pixar expanded movies, prequel, sequels, whatever you want to say. Yeah, I'm willing to admit that it is one of the better ones. It's just whether or not I truly do like it more than the other movies. It's hard for me to say because it's been a long time since I've seen them.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think I'd put, it's like Toy Story 2, Toy Story 3. I'd probably put this after Toy Story 3, and then probably Cars 3 after that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
Yeah, I feel like, the other ones just kind of feel at best nothing burgers.
Well, that's the thing is like
Toys, finding Nemo, Finding Dory.
Finding Dory.
It's a lot of them just don't feel like they have anything to say.
No. Yeah, that's the thing is like I think I have Cars 3 rated higher, but again, haven't seen it in years. I don't remember anything about it. I rewatched Cars 2 recently within the past couple of months. I'm like, yeah, this sucks, but it's not the worst. But it does suck. It is a bad film.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like with this, you're right. This has something to say far more than something like Finding Dory. Because it does have those themes of, hey, things are not always going to work out. And again, like I said, that is a huge, huge thing to get across. And that is not easy. That is not an easy theme to teach kids. So the fact that it's at least attempting that, I completely respect. So yeah, again, but like I said, I don't know if I truly like it more than those other movies, but I would probably say at the moment, sure. I'm willing to I'm willing to admit it has strengths. Like, I don't want to say this is the worst thing ever. I want to admit, hey, this has some genuinely good stuff in it compared to other Pixar sequels / even some original Pixar stuff later on, like is just painful to watch. That it's just like, you know what? A prequel to Monsters, Inc., it ain't the worst. That's huge to me. That a prequel to one of my favorite films I find better than an original film of Pixar's.
One other thing I want to give it credit to as being a prequel is it doesn't undermine like the events of the first one, of Monsters, Inc. I think that you definitely can have a lot of prequels have a habit of like either like upstaging like the events of the original movie, or like even like if it's like toned down a little bit, like it makes it feel like there's nothing in here that like feels like they have some like crazy adventures, but it's not like world-ending adventures where you're like, now like the kind of thing where if you watch the original movie you feel like, like this the events in this movie suddenly seem a lot more dime a dozen. Like these guys are used to world-ending stuff at this point, but in reality, like this is very like this is a pretty contained adventure where it doesn't feel like like it doesn't.
The biggest thing that happens,
you still understand it. They're out of their element.
Yeah, the biggest thing that happens,
they're not used to like
the biggest thing that happens is the them going into the human world, which. But
that's Sully's job at this by the time of the
exactly, sure. And it's
like they did something like they did like it's a little over the top what they did with like the like they filled the entire room is kind of crazy.
And then they scared
and you
the
have to want
adults.
and I guess this is another thing where they you got like the world building is a little confusing because you have all this like studying like you gotta they got these studying for like what scares the kid. But then if you look at like what everything Sully does in this film tracks with what he does in the second film. You don't exactly see him like studying like what's going to scare the kid in the first film.
Yeah, I guess
so that can be a little.
It is weird though because they still have that idea of children being toxic when they were very close to children in Monsters University, even close to adults. Now, the thing is, though, I don't think it totally breaks canon. I'm just saying I think it works in the context of the movie, but then going back to it being a prequel, it is weird to think about that they have visited the human world before the events of the original. It is weird. Again, not canon breaking. There is a moment that does break canon, and, you know, there is because we've gone this long without mentioning it, but we might as well mention it. That is, in the original, there's a scene. It is seen as a throwaway line where Mike goes, "You've been jealous of my good looks since the fourth grade, pal." And then in this movie, Mike and Sully didn't know each other until college. And so you think, okay, that's kind of a huge hole then. What did Mike mean by that? And here's the thing. I am willing to overlook canon breaking things like that if the movie is able to contain itself on its own. And that's what I'm saying. I think it's not the strongest, but I think the movie does take advantage of being its own thing. And that's why I kind of wish it was its own thing as opposed to being a prequel to Monsters, Inc. Because again, the original stuff is the best stuff about it, and the worst stuff is anytime it tries to reference the original.
Yeah, you could almost look at it like I don't really want to get into like multiverse bullshit, but like you don't have to. It doesn't have to be multiverse bullshit.
No, but I get
like an alter. Like these are the same characters, but in a different.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, because again, I'm not one to necessarily complain about canon. Like I said, I am more than okay with wanting to see a movie take things in a different direction that doesn't exactly line up with the original. That's fine, just as long as the stuff you're changing makes sense within the context of this movie. And so, and I mean, 99% of the time, whenever movies change things, it doesn't work out, not because it's not accurate to the source material, but more so because it just sucks. But here, I am willing to forgive it because within the context of the movie, Mike and Sully meeting in college makes sense. That's fine. But as an actual prequel, I'm kind of on. But I've already made my stance clear on that.
Yeah. At least in my own headcanon, I'm willing to like overlook it. Like I guess that like theoretically that could be a thing that someone just like said, even though you haven't known that. Like there's a reality where they could have theoretically, like you could have just like said that even though they didn't know each other in the fourth grade, and just like being like obnoxious, I guess. Which is kind of an obnoxious line regardless, but yeah, like extra obnoxious. Like we didn't know fourth grade, but
sure. But then you get into
it's exaggeratory, I guess.
Yeah, but then you get into semantics. It's just like, you know what? I don't really want to analyze this one throwaway line in breaking canon. It does, but at the same time, the movie, even if you like take that line out of the original and just look at this movie as being accurate, I still have problems with it. So like, it's not the only thing I don't like about the movie. Yeah.
And yeah, like I think I kind of mentioned it earlier. I think that like the world, like I mentioned, the thing gets messy. Like you have like the more giant, like you have more giants running around on camp. And yeah, I guess they kind of point fun of it to a degree, like where they show like the football game and like
that's
like
funny.
Some monsters are just like overpowered.
Yeah,
like
that again, that's
like,
funny.
What's the point of this sport?
Yeah, it's like that. I find funny. Like the same thing as with Ted. Like that's a funny sequence, and in this movie, you just see the giant fucking slug monster running down the field of football. Like that's funny, and I'm willing to forgive that because again, that's the thing. There's a lot of little moments I love in this movie. It's just there's also a lot of little moments I don't love in the movie. So it kind of comes together in this very messy, admittedly not the worst product. Like that's the thing. I'm willing to point out and admit, hey, this part made me laugh. This part made me cringe. So like it kind of, that's the thing. Like the little moments really make up this film for me.
Yeah. And I'm going to make this a bit, gonna ask you about a different Pixar film again. Because this is directed by the same director as Onward.
Right.
I'm trying to his name quick. Dan Scanlon.
Dan Scanlon, right.
Directed both of these. Yeah. And Onward, another one that's generally like mixed opinion. I like a lot that has mixed opinions. And yeah, I think again, like I like a lot because of the character, the two main characters.
I need to rewatch Onward again because I have not seen it. I've only seen it once. I remember liking it when I first watched it, but again, I don't remember anything about it. And its release was very strange because it released in early 2020, and a lot of things happened in early 2020. So it's weird because I don't remember anything about it, so I don't think my current review for it on Letterboxd reflects what I would actually think about it. But again, I don't know. I remember liking it in the moment, but I feel as though I need to rewatch it to like really get a better sense. Like, I've rewatched Monsters University a couple of times, and my thoughts on it have fluctuated over the years. And I am far more positive of it now. I'm still critical, but I am. I'm somewhere in the middle with it. I think it's fine. Like, I can see people calling it good. I can see people calling it bad. I'm somewhere in the middle where like there are things that work, things that don't work. Onward, I don't know how I would consider it compared to Monsters University. That's interesting.
But yeah, I feel like I have a lot of the same. It's the world building is kind of not very. But yeah, and the main focus of the character relationship with the two brothers is very strong, and I like how they characterize.
Yeah,
I think it's a little. I like this better than Onward. I think that Onward gets a little too on the nose sometimes. But yeah, I kind of think he has a cool voice, the director of this, and it's yeah, I was like, I like his work.
I mean, I'm always willing to give movies second chances. Like, I mean, this is what my fourth or fifth chance for Monsters University. But you know what? You know what? I am willing to give movies a lot of chances because sometimes things will be different upon a second rewatch. I'm glad I did. I'm glad we talked about this movie for the podcast because I have a much different interpretation of it than I did when I did an analysis video on it, because I also have a different I have different tastes in cinema than I did back in 2018. Like, I am not the same person I was in 2018. So I'm willing to give it another chance. I still don't like it, but I am far more positive towards it, comparatively speaking. And just a side note, I watched the Disney-cember of it from Nostalgia Critic, hoping it would be better than the Disney-cember on Monsters, Inc., but it wasn't. Because, again, he got basic things wrong and just didn't give it a chance, where I'm just like, you know what, dude, it's not that bad. But again, I'm willing to forgive that because it's clear he doesn't care for the movies the same way we do. So it's like, all right. I've been in that situation where I don't respect a movie enough to really give it the time of day. And I know that pisses people off, but at the same time, like, I'm sorry. I just can't care for certain movies. And so there's movies I'm willing to give leeway and willing to talk about, but sometimes a movie comes along where I'm like, I just could not give less of two shits to talk about this. So you know what? I can't blame Doug if he genuinely doesn't care for these movies.
Yeah, I think that's about everything I got.
Yeah, that's totally fine. I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah.
I want to make it clear. I don't hate this movie. Maybe I probably hated it more back in the day. I'm willing to say it's not the worst thing ever. I mean, I wasn't even really saying it's the worst thing ever back in the day, but I want to make it clear. I do have things I like in this movie. I think I just have a lot more mixed opinions on it than a lot of people do. I'm not willing to go as far as to say it's underrated. I mean, again, I'm not a fan of the word underrated anyway, but I just think it's fine. I think it's a fine film. I don't think it's an offensive film. Like, I would show this to a child. It's like, yeah, it's a fine film. And I think it does succeed in things that other Disney movies completely fail at. So credit where credit is due. I just don't like it that much, and it's not something I'm willing to watch over and over again. So clearly it's not something I want to add to my collection. Would I consider rewatching it? Probably, but not for a while.
I remember what I was going to add. I thought it was, I don't know if you might remember this, but yeah, like, I thought it was interesting that Disney, like, tried to make this, like, their poster child for, like, a minute. Like, you look at, like, this was, like, the main theme for the original, what's the Disney, like the Disney Toys to Life game, Disney Infinity.
Really?
Like this was like one of the main hub worlds. Monsters University is one of the main hub worlds for Disney Disney Infinity.
No kidding.
Rather than like the original Monsters, like actual Monsters Inc. It was this film, and I think it did really well in the box office too.
I mean, yeah, because it's another Monsters Inc. movie. So, and Monsters Inc. is a beloved classic. I mean, to a lot of people our age. So yeah, of course, a lot of people our age were going to go see it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes sense to me that it was a big hit at the box office.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting because it's not what people expected. I kind of I said at the beginning, yeah, it's not what people expected, and I think it's kind of unfortunate. Like it's kind of that it, yeah, like, and you've said it too. Is like it's if this was not a I personally really like that it's a Monsters Inc. film, but I think for its general perception, I think that's a little like it kind of hurts it as a Monsters Inc. film. Even though I like to see like, no, I like having the context of what their characters go through in the next film and how like these two connect with those specifically Mike and Sully. I like that.
You saying that it's not what people expected. I remember being a really little kid. I want to say like 12. Maybe 13, just going on the internet and finding John Goodman's Wikipedia page, because I remember being obsessed with like going through Wikipedia and looking up famous people I know and just reading up about them. And I remember finding John Goodman's filmography, because this was back in like, I want to say like 2010, 2011, something like that, and finding it's like finding his filmography and it said 2013 Monsters University like in production or something like that, and being like, oh, are they making a Monsters Inc. sequel? Holy shit. Like being really hyped for that. And then seeing the trailer, it being like, oh, the monsters had to go to college first, and being like, oh. And then, the whole having these very mature themes of finding your voice, realizing that failure is an inevitable part of life. Like, yeah, that probably caught people off guard too. You know what? I agree. This is definitely one of the better expectation subverter movies. You know, it's not obnoxious with these expectations being subverted. Like say something like The Last Jedi, which is obnoxious with that. Like, yeah, this is far more, I'm far more respectful of this movie doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think that like compared to like Last Jedi, like Sully's a douche, but he's not a very good douche. Like he's not like he's not like he tries to be an asshole, but he doesn't like he's not like over the top of it. Because he's just not like a super smooth talker, social butterfly where like you're not supposed to like him early on.
Yeah,
like
again, he is a college student, so he doesn't know a lot of things. He's still learning. Yeah,
he's not like he's not like over the top hate.
Yeah, exactly.
And likewise, like Mike has like some undesirable qualities too. I think that like it plays well, but like they're more like each other than they realize. Like with the first Scared It Games competition where they're both racing each other, and they do basically like they perform. They finish at the same time, which a little over dramatic, but yeah, they're both being I'm just gonna use the word toxic again. Like they're neglected. Like they're neglecting their team. They're fighting against each other in what's supposed to be a team match, team building exercise. And yeah, like I like how it does kind of make like how like it's able to illustrate how like Mike is like some of Mike's more problematic characteristics in here too. Even though like he is like the bookworm and whatnot, but he's being. Like he's kind of blinded by his competitiveness.
Yeah, he still has a bit of an ego, but it's more so the fact that he is fueling his own ego by being like, I deserve this because I put in the effort. When it's like, no, life's unfair. You know, you can put in as much effort and it can be all for naught. Like it doesn't matter. That doesn't mean you should give up, but it just doesn't mean success is not guaranteed. Like nothing in life is guaranteed. You have to work for it regardless. Yep.
Okay, now I think I've said everything.
Okay. Sweet. One of the quicker episodes, 2.5 hours. No, but anyway, just to wrap things up, like I said, I don't think I want to necessarily add this to my collection. I'd be willing to rewatch it again, just not for a while. But what's your stance? Do you own it on Blu-ray or anything?
I do. I have a another one. I have a 3D Blu-ray copy. I don't watch. My parents have a 3D TV that I'm able to watch 3D content on sometimes.
That's good.
On my own end, I mentioned this in previous episodes that I take my Blu-rays. I use a Blu-ray ripper to put them on my hard drive, and then I watch them from there.
Well, there you go. Hey,
so I don't have my own. I don't have a really good setup of.
I know. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's the worst when you just want a Blu-ray player, man.
Yeah, I do have one. Yeah, I guess. I don't always have the space available to use it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do. I have the Blu-ray, and I intend to keep it. I like it. I like this movie a lot.
Good. I'm glad. Unironically, like that's good. But yeah, first 2 Pixar movies right off the bat for this podcast. I'm excited. We finally got to talk about a Pixar film on this podcast, because Pixar, as critical as I am of them nowadays, like I can't deny that they had a lot of influence on me as a kid growing up. Like I can't understate that. I can't just ignore what they did, you know? Like I'm critical of them out of love. I'll say that, you know?
Yeah. Actually, we did I completely forgot about this. We were doing the comparing the Pixar sequels. This or Inside Out 2.
Ooh. Probably this. I think I did get more out of Monsters University than I did Inside Out 2. I know I'm in the minority, even more so with Inside Out 2 than I am with Monsters University. Like at first I was just in the minority of Monsters University, but I feel like as though I'm very much in the minority with Inside Out 2.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing though, is that I'm not even a huge fan of the original Inside Out. I like it.
Yeah.
I don't hate it. I like it. I think it's fine, but I obviously have more of a connection to Monsters Inc. than I do Inside Out. So, but have
you watched it recently? Like, when's the last time you watched it?
Which one? Inside Out?
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched it a couple months ago to prepare for Inside Out too. Yeah. And again, I like it. I think I like the concepts more than I like the actual movie is the thing. I feel like this concept of, you know, the emotions inside your brain, I think it works better. And I remember I realized this when watching the first Inside Out. I think it works better as a concept movie, as more so maybe not like a narratively driven film, but more so kind of like little vignettes, like being inside the brain. I feel like it would work far better because the concepts, much like Monsters Inc. and Monsters University, the concepts are really clever and I really like them. I just feel as though the Inside Out specifically is kind of bogged down by having those typical children's movie formulas kind of weighing it down. And it's like I kind of just want to watch these emotions as concepts and like these little vignettes, kind of like I don't know, maybe adapting you know how they adapted My Neighbors the Yamadas, where it's like little vignettes just as a movie, you know?
Yeah, I think for me personally, it's Inside Out. Like I agree with you on all that, but it has in the as I've gotten older.
I know people really like Inside Out and Inside Out 2, and that's fine. I mean, the fact that it's now the highest grossing animated film, I mean, I didn't really care.
It's kind of crazy, yeah.
I mean, I didn't really
I would
care.
take this over Inside Out 2 as well. I do like Inside Out.
Yeah.
I think Inside Out 2 it's good as a sequel, but yeah, it doesn't do anything too crazy. Like it is more it has more to say than the like kind of say like Finding Dory or Incredibles 2. Like it's perfectly functional.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not horribly deep.
No, I think it's perfectly functional too. Like I understand why people like it. I'm just not into the hype with it. I mean, I guess I'm glad it's the highest grossing animated film now instead of Lion King, but at the same time, I don't think animation was pushed back like 10 or 20 years because Lion King it was the highest grossing animated film. I don't think most general audiences cared that it was the highest grossing. Like,
we'll see how the prequel goes for that.
I think Mufasa is going to make $0.
I hope so.
One can only hope.
I want to be. Most people probably just watch it on streaming. So.
Oh yeah, no. I think because we're at a very different era compared to when The Lion King 2019 came out. Like this was before Disney Plus. So yeah, no, I think now that Disney Plus is a thing, it's definitely hurt Disney's box office runs in the long run because yeah, why would you
Inside Out 2 notwithstanding?
No, yeah, because that had the benefit of being, I mean, a lot of people found it good. I didn't, but a lot of people found it good. So that's why it made the money that it did. Like it was a recognizable IP, but also people genuinely got something out of it. So then word of mouth spread. And so then it became this monster hit for them. Whereas I feel like Mufasa, people are going to watch it out of curiosity, realize it's probably terrible, and then not watch it. And so then just spread the word, hey, don't go watch this, in which people are going to be like, fine, I'll wait until streaming. Like, I'm not going to go watch it in theaters. It looks boring and stupid. Like, if I'm going to watch it, maybe on streaming, but also that's not guaranteed. All right, now, do we want to end it?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah, do we want to go on another 9.5 hours? Kidding.
Yeah, you didn't know about, or yeah, I guess we can, I guess we talked about monsters at work very briefly. I don't really have anything else.
No, I literally just started it before we started recording. Like I was 5 minutes into it. I think the animation looks awful, but I can't really judge it as anything yet. So you know what? Maybe when I'm editing this episode, maybe at the very end, I'll give my thoughts and being like, "Hey, this actually sucks" or whatever, or maybe I won't. I don't know. Maybe I'll never watch it again. Who knows?
Yeah, I found it very underwhelming when I wasn't.
I have not heard anybody who likes it.
Like, yeah, I didn't care for it.
Yeah,
it was disappointing. Like like you said, like the movie original Monsters Inc. seemed like you think that there's like a lot of potential for a sequel. But yeah, I think it's less. There's less there than they kind of let on.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen where sequels go in my many years of watching sequels, and I can tell you I have no confidence in a Monsters Inc. sequel, especially if it's a Disney Plus dumped show. It's like, I don't really expect much of anything. But hey, maybe it's the best thing ever, and I'm just talking out of my ass. I don't know. I don't care.
And yeah, like kind of like I've been saying, like the best thing about both of these movies are Mike and Sully, and both their voice actors are getting older, and yeah, like where Monsters at Work goes in a different direction. Like they're in it, but they're not like a focus in it.
When it's like what we love about Monsters Inc. are those two characters. Yeah. When you take them out of the equation,
the reality is that it's a fun concept. The root of the world is a concept. Like but yeah, it's not that deep, and you can't make. Like you get eventually you're gonna run out of steam to be able to work with this. Like the TV show, there's not enough depth to this concept to make a TV show about it.
Yeah, but yeah, Monsters Inc. good. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. All right, Swine. For serious now, please shout out your stuff. Where can people find you?
As always, on YouTube at Uncultured Swine Studios. I got a couple things coming out this month, so that's exciting. I got hopefully within a week, I got a new short film coming out. It's called "Borrow a Feeling." That is a reference to the Simpsons, the one Simpsons song.
I sleep in a racing car bed. Do you?
Yeah, I sleep in a bed with my wife.
Anyway, continue.
Yeah, so it'd be cool if you check that out again. I hopefully, definitely by the end of the month, I want to. This is transitioning into the next project. Watch Shrek 2 Retold, coming out on YouTube on September 28th.
That's right.
Like I mentioned before, but I have a scene in it. I filmed it over 5 years ago at this point. I think it's really you can compare the image comp or the cinematography of the 2 projects. And yeah, I hope it'll be pretty striking how much my work is developed. But yeah, it's not the Shrek Theory Told's not my finest work. But yeah, I am in it. I think it's gonna be pretty cool, and what I've seen from it is going to be very good. So I highly recommend.
Dude, I can't wait. Oh man, I forgot Shrek 2 Retold's coming out this year. Oh man,
yes,
it's upon us.
September 28th, like 13 days from when we're recording.
Nice.
But yeah, I'll have Borrow a Feeling out before then. So yeah, watch Borrow a Feeling on my channel, and then I'll have my scene from Shrek 2 Retold also up on my channel, and then watch the entirety of Shrek 2 Retold.
Sweet. Yeah, and obviously your links will be in the description below, your letterboxd and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, follow me there. Follow me on Twitter. Or, yeah, I was going to call it Twitter.
Yeah, because...
No, there's no other name.
No, there's no. I don't know what the other name it could be. Yeah, it's just that. All right, yeah, my voice is starting to go, so I'm starting to do my Roz impression. Oh, God, that hurts even more. Fuck. Anyway.
Yeah, so...
Fuck. All right, let's end it now. Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for watching. We'll see you all next time.
Oh yeah, and don't forget to comment bananas, the secret code word, in the description or the comments below.
Bananas. Fuck. Just